After discovering my wife's affair with a man who tried to destroy us both, I exposed them, sent him to prison, and finally let her go. Now, she's starting over while I'm learning how to breathe again.
My name is Reese Morgan, and if you ran into me on the street, you'd probably think I was just another calm, mild-mannered professional. I'm 39 years old, average build, dark hair that's starting to gray a little at the temples. My wife used to say it made me look distinguished. People who only know me in passing would tell you I'm polite, somewhat quiet, and rarely ruffled, that I'm the type of man who plays by the rules and is content with the stability of life. They'd be half right because until recently I did like stability. I worked for a prominent cybersecurity firm in downtown Seattle, specializing in high-level data protection for corporate clients. My job was to detect intrusions, patch vulnerabilities, and prevent catastrophic information leaks. It's a world where trust is everything and people rely on you to safeguard their secrets. Over the years, I've developed an uncanny sense for sniffing out trouble. If a phishing email or a suspicious login appeared in one of my client systems, I spotted it right away. But the biggest threat, it turned out, was brewing in my own home. Was married, I suppose, but that's me getting ahead of the story to Felicia. If you'd seen us at a party a few months ago, you'd think we were the perfect couple. 10 years together. A nice house north of downtown with a neat little patio. The two of us smiling for holiday pictures we'd send out to friends. Felicia managed a philanthropic foundation that hosted charity galas, fundraising dinners, that sort of thing. She was the one who connected with wealthy donors, arranged events in upscale hotels, wore those classy dresses that turned heads without looking gaudy. People admired her. They'd say, "Felicia, you're such a generous soul," or "You have a real knack for bringing people together." She'd just smile graciously. Lately, though, things had felt off. Nothing I could point to specifically at first, just a vibe. She'd slip out onto the balcony late at night to answer phone calls in hushed tones, or she'd be texting rapidly at dinner and offering me half-baked excuses about last-minute donor details. I wanted to trust her. 10 years of marriage teaches you that not every suspicious glance means something sinister. But I'm not naive. I just never guessed it would be so blatant. When I finally found proof, the first real jolt came one night around 2 a.m. I was half asleep, the glow of the street lamp shining through the blinds in our bedroom. My phone was silent on the bedside table, but Felicia's phone charging next to it buzzed with an incoming text. She wasn't in the bedroom, said she needed some water. I stirred, glanced at the screen out of reflex instead of the usual unknown caller or bot spam. It showed, "New message from Damon. I miss you already." My mind was groggy, but not too groggy to parse that. I sat up quietly, the sheet pulling at my waist. Damon. I'd never heard that name in her circle of colleagues or donors. The words "miss you already" sure didn't sound business-related. A little rush of adrenaline shot through my chest, and there it was, that first pang of suspicion that your spouse is lying to you. Felicia walked in, a glass of water in her hand, and froze. When she saw me looking at her phone, I didn't confront her. Then I said nothing, just handed it over. She offered a tight-lipped smile, said something about a foundation associate named Damon texting from a different time zone. Right, because philanthropic donors always sign their messages with "miss you already." But I didn't react, didn't demand answers. I learned a long time ago that you gather evidence before making accusations in cybersecurity. You don't shut down a suspicious account. The second you see the first weird email, you observe the pattern to see how deep the threat goes. Who else might be compromised? So I let her walk off to the bathroom to reply to her associate, as she called him. Meanwhile, my heart was pounding with a new sense of dread. A few nights later, I discovered a restaurant receipt in our kitchen trash bin. Felicia had told me she was working late, preparing for a big charity event. The receipt was for a table for two at a high-end bistro in downtown Seattle. Mason DeFleur time stamped around the exact hour she'd sworn. She was swamped in paperwork. The name on the receipt was Damon Henderson, a signature scrawled at the bottom. If I matched that signature against Felicia's scrawl, I might have recognized some overlap, but I couldn't be entirely sure. Still, it was enough. I felt cold anger surge. Instead of confronting her, I tucked the receipt into a locked drawer in my home office. That night, when she breezed in around 11 p.m. with that carefully practiced, "Oh honey, I'm exhausted" routine, I just nodded. She changed into pajamas, not looking me in the eye, and I was okay with that. Let her think I suspected nothing, because now I was positive something was going on with this demon. The next morning I met my longtime friend and ex-FBI cyber forensics guy, Frederick, for coffee at a place near Pike Place Market. Frederick had that sly grin he always wore, the kind that said he saw more than he let on. I sipped my black coffee, trying to appear casual. He said, "Reese, you look stressed. You want to talk, or do I have to drag it out of you?" "Just some personal stuff," I told him. "You know how it is." He raised an eyebrow. "New intrusion in your life? Something like that?" I gave a vague shrug, not wanting to blurt it out in public. "Might be nothing, or might be. I don't know." Frederick studied me for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right, let me know if you need anything." He had no idea how much I would end up needing him soon, but at that moment I was in hush-hush mode, not even sure if I wanted to open that can of worms. But the can was already open, wasn't it? Felicia was the type to put on a lovely smile for fundraisers and cling to me at social events, making me look like the luckiest guy in Seattle. For a while I had been. We used to bond over late-night dinners. She'd chat about prospective donors. I'd talk about the latest cybersecurity fiasco at work. We'd laugh, share a bottle of wine, and end the night with a warm closeness in bed. It wasn't fireworks every single day, but it felt stable, comfortable, safe. Now, though, she seemed to drift further each evening. She'd either be texting or stepping outside to take urgent calls, or cutting dinner short to claim she was exhausted. Instead of our friendly banter, we had clipped small talk. If I asked even mild questions like "How was your day?" she'd bristle. One night I was in my home office finishing a client security patch when I heard Felicia talking in the living room. The odd thing was she was speaking so quietly. I couldn't make out the words, but her tone was definitely intimate. I slid out of my chair and approached the door, listening. I caught a snippet. "Felicia, okay, yes, I miss you too, but please let me handle him. I'll make sure he's not suspicious." I retreated before she realized I was eavesdropping. My gut twisted. That was all I needed to hear. She was reassuring someone, Damon, presumably that her husband, wouldn't suspect. Well, guess what? I wasn't just suspecting, I was documenting. The real kicker was that Felicia had a sudden foundation trip to Portland the following weekend. Normally, I'd accompany her on bigger events if my schedule allowed. She used to love having me around to show me off as her supportive spouse, but this time she'd insisted I stay behind. She claimed it's a small-scale conference, not worth the trip. My alarm bells were screaming while she was away. I noticed her laptop still open on the desk in our bedroom. She never used to leave it behind. The screen was locked, but I had ways around that. I booted it up, ran a quick decrypt of her password. She might be my wife, but I had no qualms now about prying. She'd forced my hand inside. I found half a dozen email threads with Damon. Some were mildly professional, foundation talk scheduling donors. Others were blatantly personal. Last night was unforgettable. One read another. "I'm counting the hours until I can see you again." The timestamp on that was the day she told me she was overtime at the foundation office. Instead of exploding in rage or sending a furious text, I methodically took screenshots, transferred them to an encrypted folder on my own drive, and wiped traces that I had access to her laptop. When Felicia came home Sunday evening, greeting me with a practiced smile, I just returned it and asked how was Portland. She gave some unconvincing spiel about new donor leads, never suspecting I just rummaged through her digital closet of secrets. I think some people in my position might confront their cheating spouse the second they find that incriminating evidence, scream, slam doors, throw accusations. But that's not me. If you do that, you risk letting them hide more evidence or spin the narrative. I preferred a strategic approach. Let her believe I was oblivious for a little longer. Gather everything I could like you'd gather logs from a hacked server to see the scope of the infiltration. Then, once you have it all, you present it in a devastating blow. So I waited, even though it not at me. Even though at night I'd lie in bed next to her, feeling like I was next to a stranger. She'd slip out to the bathroom and spend 20 minutes texting. I'd pretend to be asleep. When she returned, my mind felt like it was on fire, but my face cool as a glacier. One Monday morning, after Felicia left for work, I found an Uber charge on our shared financial account from the previous Friday night. She told me she was exhausted and came home early. The charge, though, was from near a downtown bar. At around midnight, I cross-referenced it with the addresses in my phone's map and discovered the bar was called High Wind Lounge. If the pattern held, she'd probably been there with Damon. It was at that point I realized I might want some backup. Frederick, my ex-FBI friend, had deeper resources than I did, especially if I needed a hush-hush background check. So I texted him, "Need a favor soon? Personal matter. Let's meet," he replied with a thumbs up. I spent the rest of the day in a fog at the office. My assistant Abby noticed she's around 28. Bright, with a quick wit, she asked Reese, "Everything good? You're usually on top of your game, but you've been quieter than usual." I tried to brush it off. Just a complicated situation. At home, Abby gave me a sympathetic look, but she didn't pry. "If you need anything, let me know." I'd have to watch myself. The last thing I wanted was office gossip, but I appreciated her concern. Now, if Felicia was meeting Damon after hours, forging receipts, texting him intimately, it all pointed to an active affair. The question was, how far had it gone? Was it just a fling? Some emotional entanglement? Did Damon, a CFO at a big tech company, have bigger plans? Over dinner that night, Felicia and I had the world's tensest small talk. She asked about my day, and I answered in one-syllable words. She fiddled with her fork, stealing glances at her phone. Each passing second felt like we were tiptoeing around a landmine. Finally, Felicia cleared her throat. "Are we okay, Reese? You seem distant." I wanted to laugh at the irony. "Sure, I'm just a little busy with new projects at work." She nodded, biting her lip. "Because if there's anything you want to talk about." "No," I said softly, meeting her gaze. "Nothing to talk about yet." She flinched at my phrasing, yet she must have wondered if I suspected something good. Let her sweat, because I'd soon break down the illusions she was clinging to. The night everything changed for me was the night I overheard Felicia in our living room on the phone with someone I recognized by voice alone, a man with a slightly deeper tone. I'd heard a snippet of it once before. I suspect she thought I was asleep or in the shower, but I was standing in a hallway, lights off, listening with my heart pounding. Felicia whispered, "Damon, I'm not sure how much he suspects, but you and I need to be more careful if he finds out about the money." "About us?" I heard Damon's muffled voice. He said something about "I'll handle him if he becomes a problem." Felicia gave a nervous chuckle. "Just calm down. Let me keep him in the dark." That was it. I'd heard enough. My mind flicked through the evidence, suspicious calls, the dinner receipts, the emails referencing a bigger scheme, the money Felicia and Damon might be funneling from her foundation donors. This wasn't just an affair. They were messing with finances, forging documents that turned my sense of betrayal into steely determination. I retreated silently, then walked into the living room from a different angle so she'd see me coming. Felicia snapped her phone shut, gave a tense smile. "You're up late." I just nodded. "Couldn't sleep, though." She paused. "Everything all right?" "Peaky," I said, my voice calm, thinking about some changes I need to make soon. She blinked. "Nervous changes, like at work?" I gave a tight, humorless smile. "Something like that." There was a long, uncomfortable silence in that moment. I decided tomorrow would be the day I called Frederick and told him exactly what was going on. Because if Damon thought he could handle me, he was in for a rude awakening. The following morning, I got up early. Felicia was in the shower, so I took the opportunity to peek at her phone again. She'd set up a passcode, but she'd used it once while I was watching from the corner of my eye as a cybersecurity consultant. Remembering a quick pattern or passcode is child's play. I opened her message threads. Sure enough, a flurry of new texts from Damon. Wish I'd stayed over. Next time. Are we still on for tonight? My jaw clenched. I scrolled up, skimming bits of conversation that left little to the imagination. Mentions of that hotel last week and the rush of sneaking around. It was like reading a script from some tacky soap opera. I forwarded everything to a hidden folder on my personal device, then carefully locked her phone and slipped it back where it was. She'd never notice a thing. That same day at work, I had a meeting with my team about a new cybersecurity contract. Normally, I'd be 100% focused, but my mind drifted to how I'd proceed. I wanted to be absolutely sure, so I used a discrete piece of software to install a monitoring app on Felicia's phone, something that would feed me partial logs of her calls and texts in real time. It was a risk, but if executed carefully, she'd never detect it. I was an expert at covering my digital footprints, after all. A couple of hours later, it was up and running. The logs started pinging my system. I felt a dark satisfaction. I was no longer blind. Early that afternoon, my assistant Abby stopped by my office. She said, "Reese, you have that client lunch in an hour. Want me to confirm the reservation?" I massaged my temple. "Actually, Abby, can you postpone it?" Some personal matters popped up. Concern flickered in her eyes. "Sure thing. Everything okay?" I hesitated, then gave her a half smile. "I'll be fine. Thanks for asking." She laughed and I stared at my phone, scrolling through the fresh logs from Felicia's phone. More messages from Damon referencing next trip. She responded with heart emojis. And I can't wait. My chest felt tight, but anger steadied me. Enough was enough. That evening, I told Felicia I'd be working late. In truth, I left the office around 4 p.m. deciding to see if I could catch her in the act. Sure enough, around 4:30 I received a ping on my phone from the monitoring app. Felicia calls Damon, then a text from her to him. "Meet me at the house at 5. Reese is busy all night." The nerve. She was bringing him to my house. The place we'd built together. Every room containing some memory of our marriage. I gripped the steering wheel, a swirl of fury and calm strategy mixing in my head. I'd catch them, but I needed to keep it from becoming a messy confrontation. I wanted them to feel fear, not give them a chance to spin this around on me. So I parked my car a block away and approached on foot. Sure enough, as I peered through a side window, I spotted Felicia in the living room with Damon. They were close, leaning in. She was laughing softly at something he said. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to stay composed. I heard snatches of conversation through the window. Words like weekend away, escape from real life, and heartbreakingly so glad we have this time to ourselves. I moved quietly around to the back, letting myself in through a seldom-used door. My footsteps were muted on the carpet as I crept down the hall. Then I made a deliberate scuff on the floor with my shoe, letting them hear me. They froze. I stepped into the room, arms folded. Felicia's face turned white. Damon, tall with slicked back hair, jumped up like a guilty teenager. "Reese, this isn't." I leveled a cold stare at him. "Clearly you two have business to finish. Get out of my house, Damon." He looked at Felicia, then back at me. She stood there, lips parted, not sure whom to face. After an awkward beat, Damon muttered, "I'm sorry, man," like that would fix anything, then grabbed his jacket and hurried past me. Felicia stammered, "Reese, wait. I can explain." I said nothing, just stared her down until we heard the front door slammed shut behind Damon. Then I turned my back on her, walked to the window and looked out at the yard. My own reflection glared back at me in the glass. Felicia hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Finally, she said in a trembling voice, "Reese, this was just a misunderstanding. Damon is a coworker. He's part of the philanthropic circle. We were discussing a big donor pitch, that's all." I let out a humorless laugh. "Donor pitch, right?" I turned to face her. "Don't insult me, Felicia. I saw how you touched each other." She flinched. I'm sorry." It's not what you think, I promise. It was just one moment of weakness. Please, you have to believe me. But I believed the evidence more. We'll talk after I decide how to handle this, I said quietly, then left her standing in that room. I felt her gaze on my back, but I didn't care. My mind was spinning with how to structure the next moves. Back in my car, I found I was breathing hard. I turned the key in the ignition, but just sat there in the driveway for a moment. So many emotions fought for control: betrayal, rage, heartbreak, yet an icy calm overshadowed them. I recognized that calm from dealing with crisis situations at work. I was in crisis mode, yes, but I had a plan. I'd gather more intel and sure, there was no escape route for them, no way to weasel out. Then I'd lower the hammer. My phone buzzed. Felicia was texting. Please come back. Let's talk. I ignored it. My next stop was a bar downtown where Frederick sometimes hung out. I needed his ex-FBI perspective on the best approach to investigating Damon deeper. Frederick greeted me with, "Damn, you look like you're about to break someone's bones." I gave a hollow chuckle. Just about then, I laid out the broad strokes. Felicia, suspicious, calls, the affair with Damon, the hints of financial wrongdoing with her foundation. Frederick listened without interrupting, his expression growing grim. "That's quite the situation," he said. Finally, "You want me to do a background check on Damon? I need everything you can get: personal records, rumored manipulations, any sign of blackmail or fraud." Frederick nodded. "Consider it done. Just remember, once we open this box, we might find some ugly stuff. Sure you're ready for that?" I thought about Felicia's flustered face, Damon's arrogant posture in my living room. "Absolutely," I said, "no more illusions." When I got home later, Felicia was waiting in the living room, eyes swollen from crying. "Reese, can we please talk? I'll explain everything." I stood across from her, maintaining a safe distance. "Go ahead. Explain." She mumbled an incoherent story. Damon was a professional contact who got a little too friendly. She claimed it was never serious, that I misread the situation. I cocked an eyebrow at that. "Misread? Like how you two planned a secret weekend away? Or how he's texting you at all hours about missing you?" Felicia pressed her lips tight. "He's been pursuing me for months." I was flattered and confused. "I never meant to hurt you." I gave a cold smirk. "You sure you're not hurting me right now with all these lies?" "Felicia, I found that dinner receipt. I've seen your texts. Don't treat me like an idiot," she gasped. "You what?" "You went through my phone." I shrugged. "Would you prefer I remain oblivious while you prance around with your lover behind my back?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm sorry, Reese, it was a mistake." I stared her down. "One mistake? I doubt that, but we'll deal with the fallout soon. For now, I have things to do. Don't expect me to be the same pushover I was before." Then I walked away, leaving her sobbing quietly. My heart pounded, but I refused to soften. She made this bed. She'd lie in it. The next day, I confided briefly in Abby, my assistant, because she noticed I was preoccupied. She asked if it was spouse trouble. I just nodded. "Let's just say my wife is caught up in something she shouldn't be." Abby frowned. "I'm sorry if there's anything I can do." I shook my head. "No, but thanks. I'll handle it." I spent most of that day waiting for updates from Frederick. When his email finally arrived, it was short. "I've begun digging. Damon Henderson might be more dangerous than you realize. Stand by." A swirl of both fear and grim excitement filled me. Good. Let me see how far Damon's shady dealings went. I wanted it all on record, so neither he nor Felicia could wiggle out when the time came for accountability. The next few days felt like a simmering pot about to boil over. I was going through the motions at work, writing security protocols, attending short meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. Each night, I'd return home to find Felicia hovering anxiously, trying to gauge my mood. She'd attempt gestures of remorse, cooking a fancy meal, placing her hand softly on mine. I responded with monosyllables, letting her feel the distance she'd created. Meanwhile, Frederick was feeding me morsels of Damon's background. Late one evening, I got a text from him. "Call me ASAP. I slipped into my office, shut the door, and dialed. Frederick answered. I ran Henderson's name through some old FBI contacts. He's got a few black marks, whispers of misappropriating corporate funds, hush money, multiple affairs with wealthy women, nothing that stuck legally, but enough rumors to form a pattern. My pulse quickened, meaning he's a con artist. Frederick exhaled. Something like that. He cozies up to people in philanthropic or corporate settings, gains access to finances, and bleeds them slowly. The women he's targeted before apparently paid him off to avoid scandal. He's good at psychological manipulation. Rumor has it I let that sink in. So Damon used charm, seduction, and blackmail to line his pockets. Felicia had basically walked right into a trap. My anger spiked not just at him, but at her gullibility. Still, I forced myself to remain calm. Frederick, I need real evidence of wrongdoing. Proof he's messing with foundation money. Think you can find that? I'll try. If Felicia's giving him direct access or forging documentation, that'll leave a paper trail eventually. Or a digital one. I nodded. Anything you dig up, send it my way quietly. The next morning, as Felicia was making coffee, I came into the kitchen. Without preamble, I said, "Tell me about Damon's role in your foundation. Is he an official partner, a donor, or what?" She fumbled with her mug. "He's a CFO of a tech company that supports the foundation. He wanted to be more involved in philanthropic ventures. We had some meetings to see how his firm could help us." I locked eyes with her. "Is that all?" Felicia hesitated. "He's also offered to help me personally with some tasks. I might have let him see certain donor lists or budgeting sheets. I never thought it was a big deal." I snorted. Never thought giving him private information was a big deal. "That's a data breach." Felicia, her face twisted. "I was just trying to impress him with how well our foundation is doing." Maybe I was naive. Naive is putting it mildly. She started to cry again, but I refused to comfort her. Instead, I turned and left for the office, ignoring her choked pleas. If she was guilty of funneling foundation resources to Damon, she'd best brace for the consequences. That day, Abby popped into my office, noticing my scowl. "Another rough day." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "You could say that." She slid a cup of tea onto my desk here. "Maybe this helps." Then, in a softer tone, "Reese, I don't want to pry, but you seem on edge. If your wife is involved with someone else, that must be brutal." Her directness surprised me. "How did you?" She smiled sympathetically. "I've caught some bits of phone conversations. Plus, you're not exactly subtle about being upset. Listen, I'm sorry if it's out of line, but I care." I sighed. "Thanks, Abby. Let's just say I discovered she's been cheating and there might be financial foul play too. I'm dealing with it in my own way." Abby nodded, laying a comforting hand on my arm. "I get it sometimes. The only way is to confront things head on. Don't let her twist your mind around." I gave a small smile. "Don't worry. I have a plan." That evening, Felicia was jumpy. She must have sensed something escalating. She hovered near me while I checked emails. Finally, she said in a trembling voice, "Reese, I want to be honest about Damon. He threatened me. He said, if I don't share certain foundation details, he'll make sure my reputation is ruined, that he'll spread rumors or leak private photos." I turned to face her. "So he's blackmailing you, essentially?" She nodded miserably. "Yes, I made the mistake of letting him get close. He'd insisted he needed the donor data to secure bigger pledges. Now he's twisting it around, saying if I don't comply, he'll tell you everything about our affair or worse, leak personal stuff online." I let out a humorless laugh. "So this was never about love or romance. He's just extorting you." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Reese. I know I messed up. I was flattered by his attention, and then it spiraled. You have to help me fix this." "The audacity. You expect me to swoop in and rescue you from your lover's blackmail after you lied to me repeatedly." She trembled. "I know I don't deserve it, but if this goes public, the foundation could be ruined. And you'd be humiliated." I cut her off. "Oh, don't worry about my humiliation. I'm well past that. The only thing that concerns me now is making sure Damon pays for what he's done. And you, Felicia, might not come out unscathed. She opened her mouth to protest, but I pushed past her, heading to the spare bedroom. I couldn't stand to sleep next to her, not after everything. The next day, I received a call from Frederick. Got more intel. Damon might be using Felicia's donor lists to manipulate stock prices. He's targeting certain wealthy donors who also sit on boards of tech companies he invests or short sells before announcements are public, reaping huge gains. My grip on the phone tightened. So he's basically running insider trading with philanthropic cover, and Felicia's the unwitting accomplice. Frederick hesitated, not entirely unwitting from what I see. She's forging some docs. Maybe he forced her. Maybe she's too deep to back out. Hard to say. A wave of betrayal hit me again. She claims she's threatened, but forging docs is forging docs. My next step is to gather all the evidence and see if the authorities can help bury this guy. Frederick's voice dropped. Careful, Reese. Damon's not above playing dirty. Once he realizes you're onto him, he might lash out. Make sure you cover your own legal bases. I gave a humorless chuckle. I've got that handled. But thanks. That night, Felicia waited for me by the front door. When I came in, she looked shaky, like she'd rehearsed a speech. Reese, Damon's texting me non-stop. He's telling me to sign more consulting agreements. I can't keep stalling. I set down my briefcase. You'd better stall, or else you'll dig an even deeper hole. She gulped. What if I just pay him off? My nostrils flared. Pay him off with what? More donor money? Or your personal savings, which are also partly mine? No, I have a better idea. We set him up. Her eyes widened. Set him up. I nodded curtly. I'm not letting him slip away with hush money. He's messing with finances, blackmailing you, humiliating me. Enough's enough. A flicker of relief and fear crossed her face. Tell me what to do. I stared hard at her first. You'll give me every piece of communication you have with him. Texts, emails, everything. Then you'll arrange a meeting. But under my terms, we'll gather enough to bury him legally. Felicia nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. I'll do it, I swear. For a moment I almost felt pity. Then I remembered the betrayal and forced my heart to stay cold. You better, because if you don't, I'll let you go down with him. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert planning. Frederick and I crafted a strategy, a fake donor pitch that Felicia would invite Damon to. She'd hint that a major potential benefactor, someone from the East Coast, was about to channel big bucks into the foundation, and Damon would want in on the action. Meanwhile, we'd record him incriminating himself, discussing insider data, forging documents, anything that would ensure the district attorney could charge him with felony fraud or blackmail. Felicia complied, albeit nervously. She forwarded me copies of Damon's texts, in which he demanded specific donor names, their net worth and their corporate ties. The arrogance was astounding. I can't wait to sink my teeth into these loaded donors, he wrote in one text. They'll never see it coming. I confronted Felicia one evening while I compiled all the messages. You realize this is huge, right? Not just an affair. He's using you to commit serious financial crimes. She was curled up on the sofa, hugging her knees. I do. That's why I'm so scared. He's threatened to leak personal photos I never meant him to have. If I don't cooperate, my reputation is finished. A surge of anger coursed through me, rage at both Damon's scumbag tactics and Felicia's foolishness for letting him get this close. Your reputation might be the least of your worries if the law gets involved. She shuddered. Please, Reese, I can't do this alone. I wanted to retort. You made your bed, but a part of me, despite everything, still recognized her desperation. So I just said, follow my plan. Exactly. And we'll see if we can salvage anything. We arranged the meeting at an upscale hotel suite near the waterfront. I booked it under a shell company name, courtesy of Frederick's connections. The idea Felicia would claim a potential East Coast donor was flying in to meet with them, and Damon should come prepared with his usual cunning. Frederick set up discreet cameras and microphones, making sure we'd capture every word. Felicia, wearing her best facade, would coax Damon to brag about his insider knowledge and scheme. Meanwhile, I'd watch from the adjacent suite, listening to everything on the day of. Felicia looked pale and jittery. "I'm not sure I can pull this off," she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder, not out of comfort, but necessity. "You can just follow the script. Let him incriminate himself." She nodded, swallowing hard. Then she stepped into the suite, waiting for Damon's arrival. I listened in real time through my earpiece, watching the hidden camera feed on a laptop. Damon arrived in a sleek suit, all confidence and smugness. He greeted Felicia with a too intimate hug. "Miss me, we have a big score." I hear Felicia forced a smile. "Yes, Damon, this new donor is ready to invest millions in philanthropic projects, especially if we can show them the Foundation's unique strategies." He smirked. "And by unique strategies, you mean the insider leads we can glean from the donor network, right?" Felicia glanced at her phone. "Exactly. They want to be discreet, but they are open to specific opportunities. If we handle it well, we can get a large chunk for the Foundation and ourselves." Damon's eyes gleamed. "That's more like it, Felicia. About time you stepped up. We can shift funds into certain stocks. Wait for the announcement, then boom, cash out. We'll funnel some through offshore accounts if we have to. The rest can line our pockets, and your dear husband never needs to know a thing." Watching in the adjacent suite, I clenched my fists. "Oh, I know plenty, you bastard." Felicia kept him talking, praising his cunning, acting enthralled by the scheme. Damon boasted about previous times he'd pulled off similar stunts. "I've done this with other partners, too," he bragged. "Not as classy as you, of course, but man, did I bank some serious coin." Frederick gave me a silent thumbs up. We had him. This was gold for any prosecutor. Then Damon's phone rang. He stepped aside, not realizing we'd rigged an additional microphone near the table. Yeah, I'm with her now," he whispered to whoever was on the line. "Relax. Once we secure the commitment, I'll handle the rest." "No, she won't back out. She's in too deep." He glanced at Felicia over his shoulder, smirking. "Trust me, I've got her under control." I wanted to storm in and deck him, but I forced myself to wait, let him incriminate himself further. Damon hung up and returned to Felicia, suggesting they celebrate with a private dinner. She forced a polite laugh. "We should keep this professional." The donor arrived soon. He shrugged. "Suit yourself. Either way, we're about to be filthy rich. Just keep your husband in the dark or I'll make sure he regrets crossing me." I exhaled slowly. I had what I needed. We ended the sting. After about an hour, Felicia excused herself, claiming she had to prepare more documents. Damon sauntered out, confident he'd sealed a multi-million-dollar arrangement. Little did he know we'd recorded every damning word the moment the suite door clicked shut. I stepped out of the adjacent room. Felicia sank into a chair, trembling. "That was awful. I can't believe how casually he talks about scamming everyone." Frederick busied himself checking the recording devices. "We got all of it, enough to bury Damon in legal trouble for a long time, assuming the DEA acts on it." I nodded grimly. "They will." He slayed out his entire MO on tape. Felicia looked up at me with watery eyes. "Reese, thank you." I stared at her for a moment. "Thank me for what?" She swallowed. "I know I messed up horribly, but you still helped me escape the worst of his blackmail." Anger flared in my chest. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this so he won't get away with screwing me over. And if you think you're escaping consequences, Felicia, think again." She blinked, tears clinging to her lashes. "I understand we parted ways that evening." Felicia went home alone while I went to meet with an old classmate who was now a local prosecutor at a discreet diner. I showed him the relevant clips from the hidden camera footage on my laptop, though I left Felicia's face out of it as much as possible. He whistled low. "That's quite an operation. Damon's running and your wife's involved." I set my jaw. He coerced her, manipulated her. She had some complicity, sure, but I'd prefer if the DA focuses on Damon. He's the bigger fish. He eyed me. "You want her off the hook?" I exhaled. "I want him to suffer the brunt. If Felicia has to face charges, so be it. but if there's a way to give her leniency, I wouldn't object. He nodded. All right, let me see what I can do. Officially, this is shaky ground because of the covert recording, but it's enough to open an investigation. We might need your wife's formal testimony. I gritted my teeth. She'll testify. Meanwhile, Felicia texted me repeatedly that night, but I ignored her. My phone dinged with messages like, "When are you coming home? We need to talk." I was too wound up to face her. Instead, I grabbed a cheap motel room to clear my head. Once I settled in, I checked the phone logs from the monitoring app. Damon had texted Felicia after the meeting. Damon 8:05 p.m. That was too easy. We'll make a killing off these fake donors. Felicia, 8:07 p.m. Yes, of course. Can't wait. She was presumably maintaining the ruse. I smirked. Poor fool. He was unaware of the real trap about to spring shut. The next morning, I confronted Felicia in our kitchen. "Pack your bags. I don't want you in the master bedroom anymore." Her eyes went wide, but Reese were married. "Not for much longer," I said coldly. "I'm filing for divorce." Tears welled up. "But can we at least try counseling or something?" I never meant I raised a hand. "Don't. You've lost the right to talk about what you never meant. You lied to my face, slept with that scumbag and helped him commit fraud. Now you face the fallout." She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "All right, if that's what you want, I'll stay in the guest room." That's exactly what I want. Then I stalked out, heading to my office. I had an entire day's worth of sabotage to plan on Damon's finances. If he thought he could keep blackmailing Felicia, he was about to learn that my claws ran deeper. Frederick and I set up a scheme to freeze Damon's assets. Actually, Frederick had a buddy in the banking sector who, once alerted to potential money laundering, could put a temporary hold on suspicious accounts. The plan was simple. We'd forward the recorded audio transcripts and relevant data to that buddy who'd quietly flagged Damon's transactions for suspicious activity. As a result, Damon's main bank accounts would be locked pending investigation. He'd be furious, but there wouldn't be much he could do except lash out. I was counting on that. The more he lashed out, the more mistakes he'd make. True enough, about 3 days later, Felicia called me in a panic. While I was at the office, "Reese, Damon just stormed into the foundation. He's screaming that his accounts are frozen and blaming me." "I'm scared." I remained calm. "Let him rage. Did he threaten you physically?" She sobbed. "He said something about making us both regret this." Frederick showed up, intervened, and Damon left. But I'm shaking. I stared at the city skyline through my office window. "File a police report if you're that worried, but do not, under any circumstances, comply with any more demands from him." Felicia's voice trembled. "Okay, I won't." I disconnected. Abby, who overheard some of my conversation, gave me a questioning look. "Everything cool?" I managed a tight smile. "Couldn't be cooler." That night, Felicia waited for me in the hallway. When I arrived home, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Reese, Damon's out for blood. He says he'll go public with everything if we don't unfreeze his funds. He threatened to ruin me, you and the foundation." I shrugged off my coat. "Let him try. The district attorney is building a case. Damon's already up to his neck in illegal activity. He can't exactly waltz up to the media and confess he's the one scamming donors." She wrung her hands. "But if he releases pictures or texts of me, I'm done." I regarded her impassively. "Should have thought of that before you hopped into bed with him." She stared at me, tears shining. "Please, I know you hate me, but I'm begging you to fix this." "Hate's a strong word," I said quietly, "but so is betrayal. You made your choice. Now stand aside while I finish handling Damon," she whispered. "Thank you." As I brushed past her, I was too tired to fight. The guest room door closed behind me, leaving her alone in the hallway. Over the next week, the foundation's board summoned Felicia to explain the swirl of rumors. Donors were hearing whispers of financial impropriety. Felicia told me in a subdued tone that they threatened to terminate her if she didn't come clean. She had no choice but to admit some involvement with Damon, claiming he manipulated her. One evening, she returned from a board meeting with hollow eyes. They have all my records now. They see my signature on some suspicious docs. Damon prepared. They said I might face charges if it's proven I knowingly assisted him. I nodded, unflinching. You did sign them, didn't you? She nodded, tears dropping. Yes, I was so stupid, I sighed. Then you'd better hope they realize you were coerced. I can speak to the DA about it, but only if you continue cooperating with me. You sign whatever divorce settlement I put in front of you, and you testify against Damon. Understood? Her lips quivered, but she answered, yes, I understand. A day later, Felicia told me Damon had tried to blackmail her again, demanding hush money. She'd asked if we should just pay him to make him vanish. I refused. Paying blackmailers never ends well. He'll come back for more, or he'll keep a back door open to exploit you. The only way to end this is to bury him in legal trouble. She looked genuinely terrified, but I didn't budge. We do this my way, or not at all, I reiterated. 2 nights later, Felicia and I carefully orchestrated another meeting with Damon, this time at her foundation office. After hours pretending she'd signed new consulting documents, the police were on standby, courtesy of my quiet arrangement with the DA. Damon arrived, probably thinking he'd intimidate her into coughing up more money. Instead, uniformed officers stepped out of the shadows, informed him he was under suspicion of fraud and blackmail, and served him with a subpoena. He glared at Felicia. You sold me out, he snarled. You and that smug husband of yours are going to regret this. Felicia trembled, but the officers escorted Damon out, ignoring his ranting. The instant he was gone, she collapsed into a chair and sobbed. I stood there, arms crossed, feeling a grim satisfaction. This was only the beginning of Damon's downfall. I remember the hush of the hotel hallway as if it's a dream. Plush carpet underfoot, subdued lighting overhead. The temperature was controlled to a pleasant coolness, which contrasted sharply with the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I stood in the adjacent suite, watching Damon incriminate himself via hidden camera. When it was over, Felicia left, scurrying away as though frightened of her own shadow. Frederick and I quietly packed up the recording devices. No dramatic confrontation, no triumphant leaps, just calm efficiency. We understood that our best weapon was no longer confrontation, but documentation, real evidence. The more Damon talked, the more rope he gave us to hang him. As we headed out, Frederick shot me a sideways glance. He's a classic narcissist. This footage is going to shred any legal defense he tries to put up. Don't be surprised if he escalates once he realizes he's been set up. I'm counting on that, I said softly. Frederick nodded. Where's Felicia? I shrugged, pressing the elevator button, probably beating herself up, or maybe trying to figure out how to talk her way back into my good graces. But that ship has sailed. When the elevator door slid open, we stepped in. Frederick gave a sympathetic grunt. I get it. Just make sure you don't let your guard down. Damon might assume Felicia set him up. Or you did. Or both. He'll lash out. The faint hum of the elevator lulled for a moment. Let him. I'm ready, I said. That night, I returned to the house. Felicia was pacing the living room, her eyes darting to the door every few seconds. When I walked in, she exhaled as if she'd been holding her breath for an hour. Race, she pleaded in that quiet, desperate tone. Can we talk? I closed the door behind me. We can talk, but don't expect me to comfort you right now. She nodded, tears brimming. I understand. I headed to the kitchen, flicking on a soft overhead light. Felicia followed, giving me some space. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, no trace of the glamorous event planner persona. The woman before me was anxious, uncertain, so different from the confident spouse I once knew. I grabbed a glass of water, took a long sip. So talk, I said, setting it down. Felicia swallowed. I want to know if you still plan on divorcing me, because if there's any chance at all that we could. Don't. I interrupted, my voice firm. Don't ask me for a second chances. Not after you lied, cheated, and helped a con man try to defraud your own foundation. You think I can just forget all that? She winced. No, of course not. But I was manipulated. Sure, manipulated, I said bitterly. But you also made choices. She hung her head. That's true. I don't blame you for hating me, I guess. I guess I was hoping you might see that I'm doing everything I can to fix it now. I studied her face. Maybe you can redeem yourself in the eyes of the law or the foundation. But us, I shook my head. I'm not sure there's anything left to salvage. Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Eventually, Felicia wiped her cheek. So what now? I exhaled slowly. For now, we keep up the appearance that you're cooperating with Damon to buy time while Frederick and I finish gathering the last bits of evidence. Then we hand him over to the authorities. After that, I'll finalize our divorce, and you can figure out how to rebuild whatever scraps remain of your life. She stood there, tears slipping down her cheeks. But she didn't argue. Maybe she knew it was futile. We parted ways, me heading to the guest room where I slept. Nowadays, I lock the door behind me. Felicia might call it harsh, but I felt it necessary. I refused to let her slither back into my bed. No matter how lonely the night got, the next few days were a frenzy of texting, phone calls, and subterfuge. Felicia reported that Damon was thrilled after the meeting, convinced they'd soon swindle millions from some imaginary East Coast donor. Meanwhile, I was funneling more evidence to my old friend, now an assistant DA, ensuring the case would be ironclad. Late one afternoon, I got a series of frantic messages from Felicia. Felicia 3:01 p.m. Damon wants new documents signed ASAP. He says he can't access some accounts. Felicia 3:05 p.m. He's demanding an urgent meeting. He's suspicious about the freeze. I'm stalling. Felicia 3:10 p.m. He says if I don't comply, he'll spread private photos of me. Please help. I read them with a grim scowl. Private photos indeed. Damon was stooping to the typical blackmailer tactic, revenge porn. I wanted to break something, but I forced myself calm. The best plan was still to let him tighten his own noose. I typed back Reese. 3:15 p.m. Keep stalling. Tell him the donor is finalizing paperwork. I'll handle the bank freeze from my end. Pretend so don't meet him alone anywhere unplanned, she replied. Felicia. Okay, I'm terrified. You should be, I thought, but out loud I told no one. The big confrontation was near. A few nights later, after a particularly draining day at the office, I found Felicia crying softly in the living room. She was huddled on the couch, hugging a throw pillow. When she saw me, she tried to compose herself, wiping her cheeks. What's wrong now? I asked, trying not to sound completely heartless. She sniffled. He posted or threatened to post something about me on social media. I can't find it yet, but he's implying he has pictures from that night. She trailed off. I clenched my jaw. So he's launching a smear campaign? We suspected that might happen. Felicia's eyes were haunted. He wants me to sign some phony consulting agreement tomorrow morning at a coffee shop near his office. He claims once I sign, he'll back off the blackmail. I inhaled deeply, mentally cursing Damon. All right, we can stage another sting. This time, we'll have Frederick or law enforcement close by. If Damon tries anything, we catch him red-handed again. Her face paled. I can't keep doing these stings, Reese. Every time I see him, my stomach twists. He's so angry now. I sat across from her, leaning forward. He's angry because he's losing. We have him pinned financially. He's lashing out. You want out of this mess. You have to see it through. One more meeting. Then we finalize his downfall. Trembling, she nodded. Okay, if that's what it takes. At single tear trailing down her cheek might have broken my heart once upon a time, but now all I felt was a faint flicker of pity, overshadowed by the heavy knowledge that it was her betrayal that forced us here. The next morning, Felicia headed to the designated coffee shop around 10 a.m. wearing a simple blouse and skirt. She texted me from her car, I'm here. Are you or Frederick close? I was parked 2 blocks away with Frederick in the passenger seat, scoping the place with a small camera lens. Yes, we see you. Just keep calm. If anything goes sideways, we move in, I replied. We had two plainclothes off-duty cops who owed Frederick a favor, parked in another vehicle, ready to jump in. From my vantage, I saw Damon exit a sleek black BMW and stride into the cafe. He looked harried, glancing around as though expecting trouble. Felicia entered behind him. They took seats at a corner table. I zoomed in with the camera lens. Frederick, checking a small audio device, muttered, "We're not picking up much. Probably too much background noise. Let's see if the phone bug catches anything on my phone." Lines of text scrolled as the monitoring app tried to parse conversation from Felicia's device, but the environment was noisy, full of clanging cups and baristas calling out orders. "We got only fragments, Damon. Sign. No choice. You owe me, Felicia. I ruined me, Damon. I'll do worse if you don't." I ground my teeth. He was threatening her again. No doubt. My gut churned, but I waited. Suddenly, Felicia's phone pinged me a coded message. "He wants me to sign now." That was the signal we'd agreed upon, for he's forcing me. Frederick tensed. "Time to move." I nodded. "Yes, let's go. But carefully. We want mid-threat so we can catch him." With the documents in hand, we hurried out of the car, the off-duty cop shadowing us about half a block behind. My heart raced. Strange how a high-stakes scenario can make the world seem hyper-focused. The chirping of a distant crow, the slight breeze fluttering, the cafe's sidewalk sign, everything was magnified. When we entered the coffee shop, Damon was leaning over Felicia, hissing something at her. She looked pale, sweat beading on her forehead. A few patrons were around, but none seemed to realize the tension at that corner table. Frederick and I approached calmly. Damon spotted me and straightened, fury flickering in his eyes. "Well, if it isn't the doting husband," he sneered. Felicia clutched a pen half ready to sign the paper in front of her. She looked at me with silent desperation. I forced a cool expression. "Nice to see you, Damon. Pushing more shady deals." "I see," he scoffed. "Screw you. This is between Felicia and me. You can't freeze my accounts and expect me to roll over." Frederick stepped up beside me, feigning innocence. "Freeze your accounts. That ring a bell, Reese?" I shrugged. No idea what he's talking about. Damon's face twisted with anger. "Don't play dumb. You have some connections in banking. My money's locked. I need Felicia to sign these new agreements so I can route funds from the foundation. I'll get my money back, and you two can go on living your pathetic little lives." A hush fell. Felicia trembled, tears pricking her eyes. Clearly done with playing along. "Damon, I can't do this." "I won't. Not anymore." He leaned in, spittle flicking his lips. "I'll ruin you, Felicia. I'll post every intimate photo I have. Send them to your foundation board, your social circles. Don't doubt me." The off-duty cops discreetly closed in from behind. One said softly, "Is there a problem here?" Damon whipped around. "Back off. This is private business." Frederick flashed a quick nod to the cops, who gently placed a hand on Damon's shoulder. "Sir, I think you need to calm down." Damon jerked away, eyes wild. "All of you are in on this. Aren't you trying to set me up?" I swear his rant was cut short as the cops pinned him. One calmly said, "Mr. Henderson, we have reason to believe you're engaging in blackmail and extortion. You can come quietly or we can do this the hard way." Patrons gaped as Damon struggled, cursing. Felicia watched with a mixture of relief and terror. I stayed back, heart pounding. This was it. He was caught in an attempt to coerce Felicia. Perfect. The cafe cameras would provide additional evidence if needed. Then, in a desperate move, Damon lunged for Felicia's phone on the table. He grabbed it and shouted, "I'll delete everything, you bastards." He tried to smash it, but the cops wrestled him to the ground. The phone skittered away under a table intact. A hush fell again. Felicia collapsed in her chair, burying her face in her hands. The cops dragged Damon upright, cuffed him and read him his rights. He glared at me, eyes full of venom. "This isn't over, Morgan," he hissed. I offered a cold smile. "Oh, it's over, Damon. You just don't know it yet." After the chaos subsided and the cops led Damon out, Frederick gave me a pat on the shoulder that might expedite the formal charges. He just tried assault and property destruction in front of witnesses. Felicia was shaking. I crouched beside her, ignoring the curious stares from the other patrons. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "Yes, I feel so humiliated." I let out of breath. "You'll live now. We have a stronger case to bury him, and maybe the board will realize the extent of Damon's blackmail." She looked up, voice wavering. "What if he posts those pictures from jail or gave them to someone else to leak? We'll handle that if it happens." I stood picking up her phone from under the table. "For now, let's get you home. We'll talk about next steps later." Frederick excused himself to speak with the off-duty cops, ensuring all the statements were squared away. Meanwhile, I escorted Felicia out to a waiting car. My mind spun with 1,000 concerns. Damon's next move, the upcoming legal wrangles, Felicia's continuing meltdown. But beneath it all, I felt a steely satisfaction. I'd forced Damon's hand, and he'd shown his true colors in public. Back at the house, Felicia practically collapsed onto the living room couch. Her face was pale. "I can't do this anymore, Reese. The stress is killing me." I took a seat opposite her. "Not too close, not too far. We're almost at the end. The DA can charge Damon with multiple counts: fraud, blackmail, attempted assault. You just need to testify." Truthfully, tears slipped down her cheeks. And then what? The Foundation might still blame me for letting him in. They might investigate me for forging documents. My life is in ruins. A part of me wanted to say, "You brought this on yourself," but I resisted. Instead, I said quietly, "If you do everything right, the DA might cut you a break. As for your reputation, that's on you to rebuild. I can't fix that." She lowered her gaze. "And us, our marriage," I sighed. "I can't give you false hope. I feel nothing but betrayal when I look at you. Maybe in time I'll find it in me to be civil, but as for love, I think we're past that." A quiet sob escaped her lips. She nodded, hugging a cushion to her chest. "I see," she whispered. An echo of sadness tugged at me. I remembered the good times, the closeness we once had, but I forced that memory aside, letting the cold reality remain. "Focus on your legal safety first, Felicia. Then we can finalize our divorce." "That's all I can say." She curled up, face pressed to the cushion, and I left her there, heading to my makeshift bedroom. In the guest room, another night of sleep overshadowed by tension. But at least Damon was in custody for now. The next day I found out Damon had posted bail. The justice system, of course, rarely keeps a white-collar suspect locked up pre-trial if they can pay bail. That worried me. He was unpredictable, and with his funds partially frozen, who posted bail for him? Possibly. He had some hidden stash or a contact who fronted the money. Regardless, it meant he was out again, presumably simmering with revenge. Frederick called to warn me. "Damon's out. Keep your guard up." "Thanks," I replied. "I'll make sure Felicia knows, too." I considered setting up security cameras around the house. Another friend from my cybersecurity world gave me a discount on a home system. By late afternoon, we had discrete cameras covering every angle outside, plus motion sensors at the windows. If Damon tried anything physical, I'd catch him. Meanwhile, I also updated my personal security on all devices, ensuring Damon couldn't hack or sabotage me. That might be his next tactic. Around 7 p.m., Felicia emerged from her self-imposed solitude. She looked worn. I heard Damon posted bail. I inclined my head. "Yes, I've installed security measures here. If you see anything suspicious, call me or the cops." She crossed her arms, glancing around. "Feels like we're in a fortress." I shrugged. "Better safe than sorry." She shifted her weight. "Reese, thank you. I know you're only doing this because you want him behind bars, but I do appreciate your not letting him come after me physically." I gave a curt nod. "I don't want you hurt, physically or otherwise, emotionally." That ship sailed. I kept that thought to myself for a moment. We stood in the dimly lit hallway. She hesitated, then reached out as if to touch my shoulder. but I stepped back the unspoken boundary where allies of convenience, not lovers. I ended the conversation by heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, leaving her behind. She stared after me, tears unshared but obvious in her gaze. That night, alone in the guest room, I found it hard to sleep. My mind replayed the earlier coffee shop confrontation. Damon's cursing Felicia's tears. The entire fiasco was draining, but I refused to crumble. I'd spent years securing other people's systems from infiltration. Now I was securing my own life from a parasite who thought he could waltz in and destroy me. I flicked on a small lamp, opened my laptop, and typed up a final log of the day's events to send to Frederick. He was compiling everything for the DA's office. Once I hit send, I closed my eyes, leaning back. The slow hum of the overhead fan lulled me. Eventually, exhaustion overcame the tension and I drifted into a restless sleep, bracing for what Damon might do next. We continue with my life overshadowed by Damon's vengeful presence. Part of me wanted to believe his arrest at the cafe was a final blow, but I knew better. He posted bail and was back out there scheming. Felicia is hanging by a thread, terrified of further exposure. Meanwhile, Frederick and I systematically feed evidence to the DA. The tension escalates as Damon tries desperate measures to salvage what remains of his twisted plan. The day after I found out Damon posted bail, I set up a meeting with the district attorney's office. My contact, a woman named Amanda Liu, who happened to be a bright up-and-comer, agreed to see me and Frederick off the record to discuss the next steps. We scheduled an appointment for 10 a.m. at the DA building downtown. Walking in, I felt a familiar buzz of nerves: white walls, scuffed floors, the faint smell of old coffee, bureaucratic atmosphere. My reflection stared back at me in the metal elevator doors. Tired eyes, stiff posture. Frederick nudged me. "You all right?" I offered a tight nod, as all right as one can be. We entered Amanda Liu's office. She was in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. She gestured for us to sit. "So you provided quite a bit of evidence." Hidden camera recordings, text logs, witness accounts of Damon's meltdown at the coffee shop. My team is building the fraud and extortion case, possibly assault charges from that scuffle. Good work. Frederick said he's out on bail, though. We're worried he'll harass Felicia or Reese further. Amanda pursed her lips. He's restricted from contacting Felicia or stepping onto her foundation's property, part of the protective order. But we know how some people ignore such orders. If he violates it, we can lock him up again. I drummed my fingers on the arm of the chair. What's the timeline on an indictment? She checked the file. We're pushing for an expedited hearing, but Damon's lawyer is likely to request delays. He might try to paint Felicia as a willing conspirator and shift blame to her. That's where her sworn testimony becomes vital. I forced to say she'll testify. She's terrified, but she'll do it. Amanda nodded. Then we're in good shape. In the meantime, maintain your personal security. People like Damon can lash out unpredictably. We'll do what we can to keep him in line. We wrapped up after reviewing a few more details as Frederick and I left the building. He'd exhaled. So far, so good. But be prepared for Damon's counterattack. If he's got any aces left, he'll play them now. I mulled that over. I'll be ready. That evening, I returned to the house to find Felicia anxiously sorting papers on the dining table: foundation documents, donor lists, some old correspondences. She looked up as I walked in. "I'm trying to find anything that might indicate how Damon got hold of certain private data. The board demanded a thorough timeline of events. I have to submit it by tomorrow." I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter. "You want help rummaging through it?" Her eyes flickered with surprise. "You do that?" I shrugged. "I still have a vested interest in stopping him. If these documents give the board more reason to side with you as a victim instead of a co-conspirator, it helps our overall case." She gave a shaky smile. "Thank you, Reese. I appreciate it." So we spent a few hours combing through old records. It felt surreal to be working side by side with a woman who betrayed me, but a shared goal ending Damon brought an odd sense of temporary camaraderie. She pointed out certain emails from months ago. "Look here, Damon first introduced himself as a philanthropic consultant, wanting to help us streamline donor relations. That's probably how he got me to open up about finances. I scanned the email, seeing how slyly Damon pitched his expertise. He basically love-bombed you with praise, offering to shoulder your burdens and lighten your workload. Typical grooming approach. She nodded, flushing with shame. Yes, I fell for it. I felt so overworked, and he came off as supportive. In no time, I was enthralled by him. I guess a twinge of bitterness stung my chest. He targeted your vulnerabilities. He's a professional manipulator. Felicia sighed. That's no excuse for my actions, though. I should have known better. I didn't respond, letting the silence fill the room. Eventually, we compiled everything in a neat folder. I told her I'd forward a digital copy to the DA. She thanked me softly, her voice trailing off with an unspoken sadness. Then we parted me to the guest room. As usual, the following day at the foundation board meeting, Felicia presented her timeline. I didn't attend, but she texted me. Updates. Felicia 10:20 a.m. board is grilling me. They want to know exactly when I started sharing donor info. Felicia 10:45 a.m. I've told them I was threatened. They're skeptical. Some of them suspect I willingly helped. Damon. Felicia 11:10 a.m. They say they might hire an external investigator. I'm so scared. Reese. I felt a pang of pity but texted back, Reese, do what you must. Don't lie. Don't cover up anything. The truth is your best defense. No reply. After that hours passed, I got on with my work, half my mind on a new cybersecurity project, the other half simmering with thoughts of Felicia's predicament. Late afternoon, she finally messaged Felicia. 4:50 p.m. the board meeting ended. They're suspending me from my directorial duties until the investigation is over. I have to hand in my office keys tomorrow. Reading that, I felt no triumphs, just a dull acceptance that her life was unraveling. She brought it on herself, but it was still painful to watch. When Felicia came home that evening, she looked hollow. She set her bag on the couch, sank onto it, and stared at the floor. I'm suspended, Reese. They're making me step aside while they figure out how deep Damon's infiltration went. I might be fired soon. I stayed standing, crossing my arms, probably prudent from their perspective. She rubbed her eyes. I know, but it feels like my entire career is gone. I didn't sugarcoat it. It might be. Doesn't mean your life is over, though. She let out a trembling breath. Easy for you to say. You still have your job, your reputation. A flicker of annoyance flared in me. I also have the knowledge that my wife betrayed me, so let's not compare hardships. She flinched. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I just feel worthless. Silent, settled. Eventually, I relented, took a seat in a nearby chair. Look, the truth will come out. The board might realize Damon manipulated you. Maybe you can salvage some respect. But if not, you find something else to do. You're not incompetent, Felicia. She gave a watery nod. Thank you for not rubbing it in, I guess. I exhaled. I have no interest in humiliating you further. That doesn't fix anything. Let's just stay focused on the real threat. Damon, if the board fires you, at least it means you're rid of that environment for a while. She gave a humorless laugh. I used to love that environment. I put 10 years into the foundation. Now look at me. I didn't respond, letting her see the stark reality. Eventually, she retreated to her bedroom, shutting the door softly in the hush of the living room. I found my own thoughts drifting. Was I losing any sense of empathy for her? Possibly, but I couldn't allow myself to be swayed. Not after what she'd done. That night, I got a phone call from an unknown number around 11 p.m. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Something told me to pick up. I said a cautious hello. An unfamiliar male voice hissed, Morgan, you think you've got Damon cornered? You're messing with the wrong crowd. Drop the charges or you'll regret it. My heart thudded, but I kept my tone even. Who is this? Just a friend of Damon, the voice sneered. He's got allies who owe him. Watch your back. The line clicked. A wave of tension rolled through me. Damon had friends, apparently possibly shady acquaintances from his business dealings. This confirmed the possibility that the bail money came from some under-the-table ally. I quickly texted Frederick, got a threat call. Unknown number. Damon's associates. Frederick replied swiftly. Probably keep logs. Will inform DEA. Don't do anything rash. I lock the door to the guest room. Check the security cameras. All clear. Yet I couldn't shake the image of some nameless thug lurking outside, waiting for an opportunity. Fine. If they wanted to intimidate me, they'd find me a tough target. The next morning, Felicia overheard me discussing the threat call with Frederick on speaker. She blanched. Threat call. Are we in actual physical danger now? Frederick's voice crackled. It's possible people like Damon sometimes have underworld connections or just unscrupulous business folks who want to protect their mutual interests. Felicia's eyes filled with fear. What do we do? I hung up, turning to her. We do what we've been doing. Stay vigilant. I have a security system in place. If you're going out, let me know. Avoid going anywhere alone at odd hours. She swallowed. I'll try. I was thinking of going to my sister's place in Bellevue for a few days, but I don't know. Maybe that draws them there. Your sister shouldn't be at risk, I said. But if you prefer to stay here for the cameras, do so. Up to you. She twisted her hands nervously. I'll stay. I feel safer with you around, ironically enough. Even if you hate me, I didn't confirm or deny. Let her interpret my silence however she wished. Days bled into a tense routine. Felicia stayed mostly inside, venturing out only for errands or mandatory check-ins with the Foundation's internal investigators. She came back looking more dejected each time. Meanwhile, I balanced my day job with hush-hush calls to the DA to Frederick, ensuring the legal case against Damon was solidifying. One afternoon, Abby, the assistant at my cybersecurity firm, popped into my office, concern lining her face. Hey, boss, you got a minute? I paused from reviewing code. Sure, everything okay? She closed the door gently. I've been hearing rumors that someone tried calling our main line, asking for personal details about you. They claimed to be from a marketing firm. It sounded fishy, so I told the receptionist to refuse. My brow furrowed. That's definitely suspicious. Good call on refusing. She nodded. Just wanted you to know in case it's tied to your personal situation. I offered a small smile. It is. Thanks, Abby. You have good instincts. She hesitated, eyes searching mine. Reese, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. I know you're dealing with a lot. Your wife, this Damon creep. Just saying, you've seemed alone in all this. A pang of gratitude warmed me. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate the concern. For now, let me handle it. But I won't forget your offer. She squeezed my shoulder lightly. All right. Stay safe. I watched her leave, a wave of relief passing through me. At least there was one person at the firm looking out for me with no hidden agenda. Late that night, Felicia was in the kitchen rummaging for a snack. I came in for water. She stiffened, then resumed her search. We coexisted in awkward silence. Eventually she spoke, voice hushed. I keep thinking about how we used to share a bed, talk about our days, laugh at silly TV shows, and now we barely exchange a word. It's like we're strangers. I sipped my water, let the dryness of my throat subside. That's what betrayal does, Felicia. It rewires everything. She set down a box of cereal, eyes downcast. I guess I thought maybe once Damon was gone, we could find our way back. That's naive, right? I swallowed, not naive, just unrealistic for me. It's too big a wound. I can't. I know what you did. Lying, foraging, sneaking around with him. She bit her lip. I understand. I just can't help mourning the life we had. Even if it had cracks, it felt real to me. Now it's all crumbled. I had no comforting words to offer, so I just said, look, you'll survive this. We both will, but it won't be as a couple. Her eyes welled up, but she nodded. Thank you for the honesty. She retreated, leaving me in the quiet of the kitchen. My reflection in the dark window showed me a man who had grown distant, colder, but also, ironically, freer. The illusions had shattered, and in their place was a clarity I never had before. That was my small consolation. The next morning, Frederick called with urgent news. We just got intel that Damon is threatening to release private photos of Felicia online if the DA doesn't drop the charges. He's basically emailing random media outlets with hints of a scandal. The DA is pissed. I closed my eyes, a wave of fury washing over me. Of course he is that scum. So what's the DA's stance? Frederick's tone was clipped. No way are they dropping charges. They're investigating additional charges for revenge porn or attempted distribution. But they need Felicia's cooperation. She has to sign an official complaint about it. I pinched the bridge of my nose. All right, I'll tell her. Any timeline on Damon's actual trial? Frederick's side might still be weeks away, but if he keeps racking up violations, he might lose bail. He's basically digging his own grave. I managed a grim smile. Good. Keep me posted. Hanging up, I marched into the living room where Felicia was curled on the couch, reading some Foundation document. She looked up warily. News. I explained Damon's latest threat. Her face paled, eyes filling with fresh tears. He really will do it, won't he? Post those pictures. My life will be destroyed. I crouched in front of her. The doc can add charges for revenge porn. You need to sign an official complaint. This may help us get his bail revoked. She clasped her trembling hands. I'll do it. But the pictures might already be out there. I set my jaw. We'll do what we can to track them if they appear. As for your reputation, you'll have to weather it. There's no magic fix. If Damon is determined to be vile. She gave a shaky nod. Okay, I'll file a complaint. Just promise me if you see anything of me posted, you'll tell me right away. I can't bear finding out by accident. I exhaled. You have my word. If I see anything, I'll let you know. In that moment she looked so broken that a pang of old sympathy stirred in me, but I didn't let it grow. The memory of her betrayal overshadowed any gentler impulse. That afternoon we went to the DA's office. Felicia signed the official revenge porn complaint, providing details of how Damon threatened her in texts and phone calls. Amanda Liu took the statement, nodding grimly. We'll see if the judge revokes his bail. This should help. Walking out, Felicia felt like a ghost drifting beside me. She stared at the floor, speaking in a choked whisper. I can't believe how far I've fallen. I was so proud of my philanthropic work, and now I'm basically a cautionary tale. I offered a quiet one day you'll look back and see this as rock bottom, and hopefully you'll have climbed out by then. She shot me a sad look. I wish that climb included you, but I can't blame you for cutting me loose. I said nothing, letting the tension hang. Our bond was built on quicksand. Now all that remained was to see Damon's downfall through. Gather the last pieces and let the legal system do its job. In the weeks following Felicia's suspension from the Foundation and Damon's bail release, tensions soared. I found myself balancing the slow grind of the legal process with the day-to-day strain of living under the same roof as my unfaithful wife. She was slipping deeper into despair, uncertain if she'd face criminal liability for forging documents or if Damon would leak her intimate photos. Meanwhile, I pressed forward with unwavering resolve to see Damon behind bars. This chapter details that dark spiral Felicia endures, culminating in a crucial turning point for both of us. One morning, I was in the living room, sifting through old mail bills, junk flyers, the usual. Felicia shuffled in, hair disheveled, wearing a rumpled t-shirt and sweatpants. She'd lost her polished, elegant veneer in these final days, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She sank onto the couch, hugging her knees. I glanced at her. You sleep at all? She shook her head. Nightmares, I keep dreaming. Damon posted pictures everywhere, and I walk into a store with everyone snickering at me. I jolt awake, heart racing. I sighed, part of me wanting to say better nightmares than the reality you inflicted. But I tried not to be cruel. We have no sign of any leaks so far. If he tries, Frederick can ask the DA to push for immediate bail revocation, possibly more charges. She nodded, eyes dull. I'm just exhausted. Reese feels like each day is a new blow. The board is still investigating me. My friends aren't responding to messages. I can't even show my face in public without feeling paranoid. I set aside the male people's memories can be short. In time, they might forget, but that's not your focus. Now, let's just bury Damon. The rest will follow. A flicker of gratitude passed across her features. She swallowed you. You might be the only one left who even acknowledges me, even if it's just out of necessity. I gave a small shrug. I acknowledge your existence. Yes, don't read too much into it. She lowered her gaze. Right, of course. An uneasy hush fell. My phone buzzed, saving us from more awkwardness. It was Abby texting about an urgent request from a cybersecurity client. I typed a quick reply, telling Felicia I had to step out soon. She just nodded, sinking back into her lonely vigil. Later that day, Felicia had a mandatory meeting with the Foundation's board-appointed investigator, a stern woman named Caroline Ross. Felicia invited me along for moral support, though it was more about gathering info that might help the legal case. I agreed, if only to ensure Felicia didn't inadvertently sabotage our efforts. We arrived at a nondescript law office downtown. Miss Ross ushered us into a conference room. She had a no-nonsense demeanor, hair in a tight bun, wire-rimmed glasses, a stack of documents on the table. She barely looked at me, focusing on Felicia with a polite but chilly expression. Mrs. Morgan, I've been authorized by the Foundation Board to question you about all aspects of Damon Henderson's involvement. Please be aware your answers may influence the board's decision on your future employment and potential referral to law enforcement. If evidence suggests deeper complicity, Felicia's knuckles went white. She nodded. I understand, Ross started methodically. When did you first meet Damon Henderson? Under what context? Who introduced you? Felicia recounted the story, voice shaking at times. She explained how Damon approached her at a gala, offered philanthropic consulting, slowly gained her trust. Miss Ross took notes with a measured calm, occasionally glancing at me as if to gauge whether I'd interject. Ross asked, at which point did the relationship with Mr. Henderson become personal? Felicia cast me a sidelong glance. It started as a flirty friendship. We text about Foundation strategies, but also personal things. Then it escalated to a physical affair. About 2 months ago, Ross's pen scratched on the notepad. You realize that alone doesn't necessarily prove wrongdoing, but it does establish that Henderson had unusual access to you. Felicia exhaled shakily. Yes, I was foolish. I see that now. Ross pressed on about the forged documents. Felicia admitted she'd signed some consulting forms Damon claimed were for new donors, but she realized too late they were shifting funds to private accounts. She'd insisted she was coerced. Ross's eyes stayed clinical, betraying little sympathy. After an hour, Miss Ross closed her notebook. Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. We'll compile this data. The board will decide whether to terminate your position or refer your case further. You may be asked to testify. Any final comments? Felicia swallowed tears. Just that. I'm sorry. I never intended to harm the Foundation. I was manipulated. I regret everything. Ross offered a curt nod. We'll be in touch, Mr. Morgan. Thanks for accompanying her. I forced a polite nod. We left the building, stepping into the harsh daylight. Felicia stared at the sidewalk, tears threatening. They're going to fire me, aren't they? I exhaled. Probably, but at least you were honest. That might spare you a criminal referral if they believe you were forced. She rubbed her arms as if cold. It's humiliating. I had no comforting words to give, so I let silence envelop us as we walked to the car. A few evenings later, Felicia approached me with a trembling phone in her hand. Damon just texted from a new number. Listen, she read it aloud. Enjoy your last days of peace, Felicia. I'll blow up your entire world if the DA doesn't back off. That includes your dear husband. I felt a surge of protectiveness overshadow my anger. Forward that to Frederick immediately. We can push to get Damon's bail revoked for harassing you again. She did as told, tears slipping. Reese, he's going to keep threatening us until the trial or until he's behind bars for good. I nodded. yes, but every threat is another nail in his coffin. The DA won't ignore repeated harassment. We just have to endure. She sank onto a stool, fear etched on her face. I'm so tired of living like this. I stepped closer, not touching her but speaking softly. It's the price of your choices and Damon's malice. We're nearly done. The hearing will come soon. The evidence is stacked. Then he's gone for good. She let out a shaky breath. I hope so. I left her to her anxious thoughts. Heading to the backyard, the setting sun cast a reddish glow, ironically beautiful against the turmoil in our lives. A portion of me recognized that Felicia was truly suffering, but I refused to let pity derail my mission. Damon needed to be destroyed. Felicia had to face her punishment one way or another. In the midst of this tension, an unexpected visitor rang our doorbell. One afternoon, Nora, Felicia's longtime friend, the same Nora who initially gave me that subtle hint about Felicia meeting a new CFO. She stood on our doorstep wearing a concerned expression. Felicia welcomed her in with watery relief. Nora, I didn't think you'd want to be seen with me. Nora gave a sad smile. I can't just abandon you. We've been friends too long. Heard from some folks at the foundation that you're suspended. I'm sorry. Felicia's tears brimmed. It's all so messed up. Damon manipulated me, and I made horrible choices. Now Reese is, well, he's basically my reluctant protector, not my husband anymore. Nora glanced at me, giving a polite nod. Reese, I returned the nod. Hello, Nora. Thanks for checking on her. She could use a friend. Felicia let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, because I've run out of those. Nora guided Felicia to the couch. I stood back, arms folded, letting them talk. They spoke quietly about the board investigation, the affair, the blackmail. At one point, Felicia sobbed. I just want my old life back. I was so stupid. Nora rubbed her back. We all do stupid things. This is bigger than that, though. Damon's apparently a real con man. I heard rumors he's got skeletons in multiple states. Felicia nodded miserably. I know if not for Reese's interventions, I'd be in jail with him. Nora glanced at me, a question in her gaze. I stepped forward. We've set up legal angles to ensure Felicia is recognized as more victim than accomplice, as long as she cooperates fully. The DA focuses on Damon. Nora exhaled, relief flickering. Good. Then maybe you'll weather this, Felicia. Felicia half laughed, half cried. What does that even mean? My marriage is over. My career is over. My reputation is shot. Nora patted her hand. One day at a time. Maybe someday you can pick up the pieces. I quietly left them to talk in private. If Felicia needed emotional support from someone other than me, that was probably best. As the days dragged on, the foundation board made it official. Felicia was terminated from her directorial role, citing gross negligence. She received a formal letter delivered by mail. I found her reading it in the kitchen, tears silently streaming. She looked up at me, her voice hollow. I'm fired, they said. My actions caused irreparable harm to the foundation's trust with donors. They're also considering legal action if the investigation shows I knowingly participated in fraud. I took the letter from her, trembling hands, scanned it. It was harsh, but not surprising. Well, now you know. She gave a mirthless laugh. I deserve it, I guess. I had no gentle words. At least you won't be indicted if you keep cooperating. The board might push for charges, but the DA likely won't pursue them if you remain key in Damon's downfall. She sniffled. I guess I should be thankful for that. Meanwhile, my life's in shambles. I nodded. Sometimes that's the cost of betrayal, Felicia. She bit her lip, tears intensifying. You're right. I did this to myself. I left her to grieve her lost career. My own emotions remained a swirl of bitterness and something like pity. But I couldn't show pity. Not now. Meanwhile, Frederick updated me that Damon's lawyer was trying to file motions to dismiss evidence claiming entrapment or illegal surveillance. However, the evidence was strong and lawfully obtained. We had partial consent from Felicia for the recordings, and the coffee shop meltdown was public. The judge scheduled a preliminary hearing in 2 weeks to decide if the case would go to trial or if Damon would accept a plea. The notion made me bristle. If Damon pleaded guilty to lesser charges, that might reduce his prison time, but it would still mark him as a felon. I didn't want him escaping with a slap on the wrist. I kept urging the DA to aim high, push for maximum charges. In the midst of these legal maneuvers, Damon's text threats continued sporadically. The repeated tone dropped the charges, or else he didn't seem to realize we had no direct power to drop charges. The DA wasn't budging. Each threat was reported, each one piling up as evidence of witness intimidation. One evening, Felicia stood in the hallway, phone in hand, tears shining. He texted again. He wrote, "If I go down, I'll take you with me. Don't forget that I have your confessions on record." My jaw tightened. He's bluffing. We already confessed your involvement to the DA. He can't blackmail you with it. He's desperate. She shuddered. I wish I could just run away. I studied her trembling form. Running solves nothing. If you run, you look guilty. Stand your ground and let the law handle him. She nodded, swallowing tears, and retreated to her room. Another night of overshadowing dread, another day closer to the hearing. As the hearing date approached, Felicia's anxiety peaked. She hardly slept, pacing the house at odd hours. I occasionally found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m. staring blankly at a cup of tea. If I spoke, she'd flinch, mutter an apology, and scurry off. One early dawn, I decided to join her, sensing she might break down otherwise. Couldn't sleep again. She looked up, eyes ringed with exhaustion. No, keep dreaming about courtrooms and cameras. Damon's smug face laughing at me. I poured myself coffee. He won't be laughing if the judge sees all the evidence. He's going to face serious consequences. She gazed at the steaming liquid in her cup, voice trembling. I want to believe that. But what if he worms out of it? He's cunning, has shady connections. Or what if he only gets a mild sentence and comes after me once he's out? I frowned. Then we'll push for a stiff sentence. This is beyond a personal vendetta. It's a matter of public interest. The DA hates scammers like Damon. They'll do everything they can to bury him. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm sorry I ever let him in, Reese. I destroyed everything we had for nothing. I took a measured breath. We can't change the past. Focus on testifying, on ensuring he pays. That's all that matters now, she sniffled, tears falling into her tea. Thank you for still being here. Even though you loathe me. I know you do. I stared at her, not denying it, just letting the silence confirm my stance. Then I left, coffee in hand, returning to the guest room. Dawn light crept through the windows as I braced for another day of waiting. The day before the hearing, we had a final meeting with Amanda Liu, the DA's office rep. She laid out the plan. Felicia would give a statement confirming Damon's blackmail attempts, forging documents under duress, and repeated harassment. I would corroborate certain aspects along with the evidence from our recordings. If Damon's lawyer tried to smear Felicia as an active accomplice, the DA would show that she turned over all relevant info and cooperated fully. That afternoon, Felicia and I returned home, mentally bracing for the next day. She sank onto the couch, pressing a trembling hand to her forehead. I'm so scared, Reese. What if Damon's there in the courtroom, glaring at me? I sat on a nearby chair. He will be, but you can't let that intimidate you. The law is on your side. If you tell the truth. She stared at me, tears in her eyes. You'll be there, right in the audience or wherever they let you be. I hesitated, but nodded. Yes, I'll be there to present my part if asked. You're not facing him alone. Her breath hitched. Thank you. I offered a stiff shrug, not sure what else to say. My heart was locked in a fortress of resentment, but for the moment I recognized she needed my presence to hold herself together. That night, the two of us, once intimately married, sat separately in the living room saying little. The tension felt like a thick blanket over the house, yet we coexisted, bound by the common goal of seeing Damon go down. Finally, the morning of the hearing arrived. Felicia, dressed in a conservative skirt and blazer, hair pulled back in a no-frills style. I wore a dark suit, crisp shirt. The drive to the courthouse was silent, each of us lost in our own nerves. Inside the courthouse corridors, the sterile lighting and echo of footsteps set a solemn tone. Frederick joined us, greeting us with a calm nod. "We've got everything lined up." Damon's lawyer might try stalling or pushing for a continuance, but the judge is known to be no nonsense. Felicia's hands shook as we approached the courtroom. "I feel nauseous." I placed a hand on her shoulder, more out of necessity than affection. "Breathe. You just have to recount the facts. Don't let Damon rattle you." She nodded, swallowing. We stepped into the courtroom, found seats behind the prosecution's table. Damon arrived shortly after, flanked by his defense attorney. He cast a dark glare in our direction. My blood simmered, but I kept my face impassive. The hearing began. The judge sat perched on the bench, calling the case forward. The DA's team summarized the charges: fraud, extortion, blackmail plus intimidation of a witness. Damon's lawyer tried objecting to the recordings, claiming entrapment. The DA argued they were consensual recordings by a cooperating party, Felicia, and that the coffee shop meltdown was public domain. The judge overruled the defense objections, indicating the evidence would stand. Then Felicia was called to the stand. She stepped up, voice trembling, to recount how Damon first approached her, gradually manipulated her, and threatened to expose personal photos if she didn't comply. Damon glowered from his seat, occasionally whispering to his attorney. Felicia's tears glinted under the fluorescent lights, but she pressed on, determined. Finally, the defense cross-examined, insinuating she was a willing participant. They pointed to a few flirty messages Felicia had sent Damon early on. She admitted to an affair, but insisted the criminal element, stealing donor funds, was forced upon her via blackmail. She insisted on her regret and how she eventually turned everything over to the DA. The judge listened carefully, occasionally instructing the defense to keep their cross-examination relevant. Tension thickened. I balled my fists under the bench, wanting to leap up and refute their insinuations, but I had to let Felicia stand her ground, and she did. With tearful honesty, she described the moral spiral Damon lured her into. In the end, she withheld nothing. When it was my turn to testify briefly, I recounted how I discovered their affair, how I caught them in my home, the suspicious documents, the text threads, the hidden camera staying at the hotel, the coffee shop confrontation where Damon physically lunged for Felicia's phone. Damon's attorney tried to smear me as vengeful, orchestrating an illegal entrapment, but I calmly explained how Felicia willingly cooperated with the recordings. The judge again seemed unsympathetic to the defense's entrapment claim. Finally, the preliminary hearing concluded with the judge pronouncing that the evidence was sufficient to proceed to trial. He also chided Damon for repeated harassment attempts, hinting that the bail might be revoked if any more intimidation occurred. Damon's face was a mask of fury. When we locked eyes, I saw a raw hatred there. My heart pounded, but a sense of victory mingled with it. We were winning. Exiting the courtroom, Felicia was shaking so badly I had to support her arm. She leaned on me, tears falling. "Thank God that's over. I was so scared on that stand." I nodded, voice low. "You did all right. The judge believed you. That's what matters." Frederick patted my shoulder. "We got the green light for trial. Damon's going to have a tough uphill battle." Felicia exhaled, watery relief in her eyes. "So next is the full trial." Frederick nodded. "Or a plea deal, if Damon's lawyer sees the writing on the wall." She looked at me. "And then we can be done with him, right?" I studied her face. "Yes, then it's over, as far as Damon is concerned." We rode the elevator down, a swirl of tension still pressing around us. But for the first time, Felicia's tears seemed more like tears of relief than of terror. Damon was now undeniably caught in the system. The hearing stripped away many of his defense angles. The question was how much havoc he'd attempt before the actual trial or plea. All I knew was I wouldn't rest until I saw him sentenced. And Felicia, her fate with me, was sealed, but at least she might emerge from this with some shred of a future. That was enough reason to keep going. The preliminary hearing ended with Damon indicted on multiple charges, and his attempts to discredit Felicia or me fell flat. But a cornered con man with shady allies doesn't go quietly. This chapter details the final escalation of Damon's threats, the meltdown that forces the legal system to clamp down. Meanwhile, Felicia grapples with the bleak reality of her life post-foundation, and I remain unflinching in my quest for total revenge. The day after the hearing, Felicia and I retreated to the house, hoping for a moment to breathe. She was emotionally drained. I was mentally exhausted. We took separate corners of the home, me and the guest room scanning new cybersecurity updates on my laptop, Felicia presumably in the living room or her bedroom. Trying to decompress around midday, she approached me timidly. "I'm going to step outside for a walk. Maybe just around the block. Fresh air might help." I nodded. "Take your phone and be careful. Damon's out on bail," the judge warned him. "But who knows?" She gave a ghost of a smile. "Thanks for the concern." After she left, I felt uneasy. Damon's unpredictability weighed on me. Checking the security cams, I saw her walking down the sidewalk, arms folded, gaze lowered. She looked so vulnerable, but I forced myself not to hover. She needed some semblance of normalcy. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Felicia was calling, her voice shaky. "Reese, I just saw someone parked across the street. I think it's one of Damon's associates. A man in a dark sedan watching me. I'm heading back. Please meet me at the door." My heart jolted on my way. I hurried outside, scanning up and down the block. Sure enough, a black sedan idled near the corner. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside. Felicia was half running back, face pale. I stepped onto the sidewalk, giving the car a defiant stare. The engine revved and it peeled away with a screech, vanishing around the corner. Felicia reached me breathless. "He just watched me. Didn't come out or anything, but it felt so intimidating." I guided her inside. "Could be a random creep or Damon's hired stooge. Either way, I'll let Frederick know." She trembled, tears brimming. "I hate this. I can't even walk outside without fear." I rubbed my temples, anger flaring. "Damon's crossing lines. We'll push for his bail revocation. Enough is enough." She nodded, eyes wide. "Yes, please." We retreated into the house, locking the door. My mind spun with how to expedite Damon's downfall. Another intimidation attempt, or maybe just a scare tactic. Either way, it fueled my resolve to bury him deeper in legal trouble. That evening, Frederick rang me. "Heard about the suspicious black sedan. The DA's office says they can't revoke bail on speculation alone. We need license plates. A direct link to Damon." I cursed under my breath so he can keep spooking her until he crosses a line. "The law recognizes Frederick." Sighed. "Essentially, we can file a police report for harassment, but unless the occupant threatened her verbally or brandished a weapon, it's still circumstantial." I ground my teeth. This system can be maddening. "Fine, we'll stay vigilant. And if he tries again, we'll get a plate number or photo." Frederick's voice held empathy. "Hang in there. The trial might be soon if the DA denies any postponements." After we hung up, I relayed the news to Felicia, who slumped. "So we're stuck living in fear for now," I said, stoic. "But Damon's painting himself into a corner. Each intimidation attempt is more evidence if we catch him or his associates in the act." She let out a shaky exhale. "I'm not sure how much more I can take." I had no sweet platitudes. Instead, I said, "Stay indoors. Keep your phone on. If you need to go somewhere, let me drive you or go with a friend. We reduce the chance of you being alone." She nodded, subdued. Another day in a life-turned prison. In this tense lull, a small bright spot emerged. Nora visited again, bringing groceries and a comforting presence for Felicia. I overheard them in the kitchen, Nora softly encouraging her to hang on. "Keep faith." Felicia apologized repeatedly for lying to everyone, saying how Damon's flattering words and false promises seduced her. Nora told her, "We all have weaknesses. He exploited yours, but you need to atone and then move forward." I listened from the hallway, arms folded, letting Felicia have that support. If Nora could buoy her spirits, so be it. I recognized that while I wanted justice, I wasn't aiming for Felicia's total emotional destruction. She'd suffer enough from losing me, her job, her reputation. That was punishment enough. 2 nights later, around 2 a.m. the house phone rang. I jolted awake from my uneasy sleep. Felicia banged on the guest room door, frightened. "Reese, it's Damon or someone else calling." It rang once and hung up. I quickly check. The call logs. Unknown caller 2:02 a.m. Possibly a scare tactic. Great. I told her to breathe easy. If they call again, we record or let it go to voicemail. This might be them testing if we're awake. She clutched her robe, face pale in the dim hallway. I hate living like this. I set my jaw. Me too. But soon enough, Damon will be behind bars. Let's hold out. She nodded, hugging herself. We parted back to our separate rooms. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind flickered with the possibility of Damon or an associate lurking outside, smirking at our misery. Let them smirk. I'd have the last laugh. Around this time, the district attorney's office announced a firm trial date for Damon about 3 weeks away. A swirl of motions from his lawyer tried to delay it, but the judge refused. Damon was out on bail, but the countdown began. Felicia, ironically, was both terrified and relieved. The sooner the trial happened, the sooner it ended. During this waiting period, Felicia's foundation board emailed her a final notice. They concluded she'd grossly violated trust, though they stopped short of pressing additional charges, likely because the DA had bigger fish to fry. Damon. They demanded restitution of any suspicious funds, though ironically, Felicia never pocketed money for herself. The restitution claim was more about the foundation's legal stance. Felicia had no money to repay anyway. She sank deeper into despair. One evening, I found her scrolling job listings on her laptop, tears silently dropping. "Nobody's going to hire me," she murmured. "I'm tainted. Even if they don't file charges against me, who'd trust me?" Again, I had no comforting answer. She had indeed ruined her professional credibility. So I said simply, "Maybe you can do something outside that philanthropic circle. Start fresh." She sniffled. "I'm 36. I've no other specialization. I'm worthless." A flash of annoyance rose in me. "That's your self-pity talking. You have organizational skills, event planning experience. Sure, your reputation took a hit, but if you have any grit left, you can find a path. Don't blame me if that path is rocky." She gave a hollow chuckle. "You're honest to a fault, Reese." I shrugged. Sometimes brutal honesty is all that's left. She wiped her tears, nodding. "Thanks, I guess, for not sugarcoating. I'll figure something out eventually." At that moment, I realized how exhausted I was from being locked in this reluctant caretaker role, but I'd see it through until Damon was sealed away. Then Felicia and I could finalize the divorce and part ways for good. A few days later, at around 9 p.m., Felicia stepped outside to water some neglected potted plants on the patio. I was in the living room, scanning the security camera feeds and ingrained habit. Now, suddenly, a shape flitted across the camera at the edge of our driveway. My muscles tensed. The figure paused near the corner of the house, seemingly trying to remain hidden. Then Felicia, startled, scream tore through the night. I lunged for the door, heart hammering on the patio. Felicia stood frozen, watering can dropped at her feet. A man in a hoodie loomed, face partially shadowed. He hissed, "Bitch, you'll pay for crossing Damon." My adrenaline spiked. "Hey!" I roared, bounding toward them. The man whipped around, cursing, and sprinted off into the darkness. I gave chase, but he was fast, ducking behind a neighbor's fence. Within seconds, he vanished, panting. I returned to Felicia, who was shaking violently. "You okay? Did he hurt you?" She clutched my arm, eyes wild. "No, but he said Damon's name. We have to call the cops. He threatened me." I nodded, pulling out my phone. The police arrived quickly, scanning the area, but found no sign of the intruder. We showed them the partial camera footage, a man in dark clothing sneaking around. They took our statements, agreed to file a report. As the cruiser lights faded, Felicia trembled on the porch, tears streaming. "He was right there. Reese, if you hadn't come out, I don't know." I gritted my teeth. "This has to end. Damon's behind this." Let me contact the DA first thing in the morning. Push for immediate bail revocation. She just sobbed, leaning into me in a wave of fear. I stiffened, not returning the embrace, but letting her cling for a moment until her panic subsided. Then I gently nudged her inside. She was too shaken to notice my lack of warmth. Early the next day, I hammered the DA's phone line until Amanda Lou picked up. I recounted the intrusion, Felicia's near attack, and the camera footage. She was appalled. Send me the footage immediately. If we can link this guy to Damon, we'll ask the judge to revoke bail. I emailed the clip, frustration boiling. We have him on record threatening Felicia by name. That's direct intimidation. Amanda sighed. We need a positive ID of the intruder or proof Damon directed him. But I'll try. The judge might do it anyway, given the pattern hours crawled by until Amanda texted me. Judge scheduled an emergency bail hearing in 2 days. Damon must appear to defend why his bail shouldn't be revoked. Good job. I exhaled relief. If the judge saw this new intimidation attempt, Damon might finally be locked up pre-trial. Felicia was curled on the sofa when I told her. She half laughed, half cried. Yes, lock him up, please. I can't live with these threats anymore. 2 days later, we returned to the courthouse for the bail revocation hearing. Damon arrived looking more disheveled than usual, eyes bloodshot. His lawyer tried to argue there was no direct link to Damon. The intruder in the hoodie was unidentified. The license plate was never captured. The doc countered with a pattern of repeated threats, the coffee shop meltdown, Felicia's new attack, all suspiciously connected to Damon's vow to ruin her. The judge, clearly exasperated with Damon's intimidation record, said in light of these repeated incidents and the strong suspicion that Mr. Henderson continues to orchestrate harassment, I find sufficient cause to revoke bail. Mr. Henderson will be remanded into custody until trial. Damon leapt up, shouting, "This is a setup. They're lying. I can't be locked up." Bailiffs seized him, pushing him down. He glared at me, eyes filled with hatred, screaming, "You'll pay, Morgan, you and your lying wife." This is not over, my pulse thundered, but I maintained a steely gaze. This was exactly what we needed. Damon behind bars. Unable to direct further harassment, the bailiffs dragged him out. The judge banged the gavel. Concluding the hearing, Felicia sagged against a nearby bench, tears of relief falling. "He's locked up, Reese." Finally, I nodded, subdued. "Yes, now we just wait for the trial or a plea deal. But at least he can't terrorize you in the meantime." Frederick, present for moral support, gave me a thumbs up from across the aisle. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The real fight at trial was yet to come, but Damon's ability to lash out physically or send minions was severely curtailed. Leaving the courthouse, Felicia wiped her tears, a shaky smile forming. "I feel like I can breathe again. He's not free to come after me or send his goons." I nodded, guiding her down the steps. "You should rest. Let's get home." She sniffled. "Okay." As we reached the parking lot, Felicia took a deep breath. "Reese, I know I keep saying this, but thank you. You saved me, even though I'm the one who cheated." "Who lied?" I shrugged, wearing a stoic expression. "It's partly about my own pride. Damon tried to humiliate me, manipulate you, and steal from the Foundation. I wasn't going to let that slide. This was never just about saving you, Felicia. But I'm glad you're no longer in immediate danger." Her eyes shimmered still. "You stood by me in court. You helped gather evidence. Most men would have left me to rot. I know you plan to divorce me, but I do appreciate everything." I gave a curt nod, not wanting to dwell on the emotional side. "We did what needed doing. Let's go." We drove back in silence, each lost in thought. Damon behind bars was a victory, but the final blow, his conviction or plea, remained. And so, with the noose tightened, we prepared for the final stage of this excruciating ordeal. 2 days after Damon's bail revocation hearing, I woke up to a gray, rainy Seattle morning. The gutters outside the bedroom window sloshed with water. I'd slept fitfully, plagued by half-formed nightmares of Damon yelling curses in the courtroom. My phone alarm buzzed at 6 a.m., jolting me from uneasy slumber. I went about my routine in a mechanical way: shower, coffee, scanning my work emails for urgent security issues. A high-profile client was dealing with a potential data breach, but I found it oddly easy to focus on that normalcy, like a refuge from the personal chaos. By the time I emerged from my home office at 8 a.m., Felicia was in the kitchen rummaging for breakfast. She wore a simple cardigan over jeans, hair pinned back. The anxious hollowness in her eyes hadn't left. But today there was a flicker of something else. Determination, maybe. She looked up as I walked in. "Morning," she said quietly, fiddling with a box of cereal. "I heard you pacing last night." I exhaled. Couldn't sleep, too much on my mind. The trial's coming soon. Another couple of weeks and we're in the thick of it. She poured cereal, then stared at it. "Sometimes I wish it would. Hurry up. Get it over with." I sank into a chair. The DA has a strong case. Damon's meltdown at the bail hearing only helps. He's basically pinned. I guess he could still try for a plea deal. Felicia frowned. "He's so prideful. I doubt he'll accept guilt." Quietly, I nodded. "True, prideful or delusional. Either way, it's out of our hands. The DA is running with it." She stirred her spoon, not eating. "I'm still worried he'll lash out from prison. He has associates, right?" I shrugged, forcing a calm tone. "Possibly. But with him behind bars, orchestrating intimidation is a lot harder. We have extra security. Let's hope it's enough." Felicia finally took a small bite of cereal, face reflecting the tension she tried to hide. We didn't say much else. The entire house felt heavy with dread, as if the walls themselves braced for another wave of stress. Yet that morning passed without incident, just a quiet breakfast in the gloom of a Seattle drizzle. Later, at my office, Abby, my ever-reliable assistant, knocked gently on my door. "Hey, boss, any update on your personal situation?" I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my tired eyes. "Damon's in jail, waiting for trial. That's the main update." She half smiled in relief. "Good. Then at least you don't have to worry about him sneaking around." I nodded. "Exactly. He can't physically harass Felicia, but you never know if he's pulling strings from behind bars." Her gaze flickered with concern. "You look exhausted. Is Felicia doing any better?" I hesitated, hard to say. "She's calmer, I guess, but depressed. Lost her job, her reputation. The only bright side is that no new threats have surfaced in a couple of days." Abby gave a sympathetic nod. "Well, I'm here if you need anything, work or personal. Don't hesitate." I mustered a small, grateful smile. "Thanks means a lot." She left, and I returned to the swirl of security tasks. In some weird sense, resolving data breaches for clients felt simpler than the tangle of my own life. I could trace malicious code, identify vulnerabilities, patch them. My marriage and everything around it had no such straightforward fix. That evening, Felicia rummaged through old photo albums in the living room. I came in to find her flipping pages that contained images of us smiling at a beach vacation years back. Sunt and carefree. Another set showed our first Christmas in the Seattle house, hugging in front of the fireplace. When she spotted me, her eyes filled with tears. I was just looking. I approached, stopping behind the couch. The old pictures stirred a pang of nostalgia in me. "Haven't seen these in a while." She exhaled shakily. "We looked so happy, and I guess we were." "Yeah," I admitted softly. "We were." She closed the album, tears clinging to her lashes. "Feels like a different lifetime. I can't even remember what it's like to be that person who trusted her husband without guilt." A swirl of conflicting emotions rose in me. "Well, neither can I remember trusting you like that. That's the nature of betrayal." She nodded, hugging the album. "I wish I could undo everything." I didn't respond. Words about regret or if only change nothing. After a moment, I moved to the kitchen, letting her solitude remain. Some nights the weight of memory was heavier than we could handle together. Over the next few days, new developments emerged. Felicia received a formal notice from the Foundation's lawyers that they intended to seek restitution in civil court if the criminal proceedings revealed further complicity. Panicked, she asked me, "What do I do?" I considered it you might need your own lawyer to handle potential civil suits separate from the DA's criminal case. Let me call Frederick, see if he knows a good civil attorney. She bit her lip. That costs money and I'm unemployed. I shrugged. We can figure something out, pro bono or partial. Maybe I'll help if it's not too insane. A flicker of gratitude. You do that, I exhaled. Let's see what it entails. If you're only mildly implicated, they might not push too hard, but either way, you need representation. Don't face them alone. Tears welled. I thank you, Reese. God, I feel so helpless. I gave a curt nod. It's not about saving you from everything, but I won't let them railroad you if Damon's the real culprit. She sniffled. I appreciate that. So I contacted Frederick, who recommended a small firm that sometimes took on messy civil disputes for clients in financial straits. I passed the info to Felicia, who made an appointment, another step in the painfully slow process of cleaning up her life in the days that followed. A monotony settled in. Felicia mostly stayed in the house or took short walks. When I or Nora could accompany her, I juggled my job with near-daily calls to the DA's office for trial updates. The date was set in just under 2 weeks. We'd be in a county courtroom for Damon's main trial on fraud, blackmail, and related charges. Plea negotiations might happen, but so far, Damon's camp insisted on fighting. One afternoon, Felicia stood by the front window, watching the rain trial so close. She whispered, "I'm terrified, but also ready." I joined her, arms folded. We'll get it done. You just have to retell your story, show your evidence. The DA will do the rest. She nodded. I keep thinking, what if he tries to blame me for everything? I have smiled wryly. He will, but it won't stick. The evidence is strong. The judge saw that at the hearing. Don't let him rattle you. She closed her eyes, tears gathering. I'll try her. Hush enveloped us. The steady patter of raindrops, a lullaby of tension that hushed, defined our household quiet dread, a mutual acceptance that we were approaching the final showdown. That evening, I invited Frederick over for dinner, partly for morale, partly to plan final trial details. Felicia cooked a simple pasta dish, wanting to show some gratitude to the man who had helped us gather evidence. When Frederick arrived, he gave her a polite smile, though I could sense a residue of judgment beneath it. He'd always been my friend first, and Felicia was the one who broke my trust. Still, he acted cordial over plates of pasta and a bottle of modest red wine. We discussed the case, Frederick said. I spoke to Amanda Liu. Damon's legal team is throwing a Hail Mary, claiming the foundation's finances were mismanaged before Damon arrived. So the fraud accusations are inflated. It's nonsense, but they'll try anything. Felicia swallowed nervously. Will that help him, though? Frederick shrugged. Doubtful. The blackmail and threat charges are separate from the foundation's finances. His meltdown in the cafe, the bail hearing, it's all on record. I nodded, sipping wine. He's cornered, but a cornered man is dangerous. We keep alert. That friend who threatened me by phone. Any update? Frederick shook his head. Nothing definitive. The cops are investigating. No progress so far with Damon in jail. I suspect they might lie low or they might try some final stunt. Felicia's face paled. God, I hope not. Frederick reached for the breadbasket. All we can do is remain vigilant. In a couple of weeks, we'll see him in court. The DA's aiming for a multi-year sentence. If convicted. Felicia nodded, trying to muster a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'll be relieved if he's locked away for a long time. We wrapped up dinner with stilted, small talk, none of us quite relaxed. After Frederick left, Felicia murmured, I appreciate you guys letting me sit in. I know I'm the cause of all this, but thanks. I didn't respond verbally, just gave a brief nod. Words seemed too shallow for the undercurrent of betrayal and regret. We all felt the final stretch before the trial saw Felicia meeting with the DA's office a couple of times to finalize her testimony. She'd come home, drained, almost shell-shocked, from reliving the affair details and Damon's threats. I found her more than once on the couch, hugging a pillow, tears on her cheeks. One afternoon, after a lengthy DA meeting, she returned pale and shaken. I offered her a glass of water. She accepted with trembling hands. They wanted every detail of my first intimate encounter with Damon. She whispered. How I felt, what he said. I can't believe I had to say it all out loud. A flicker of pain lanced through me. They want to prove how he seduced and manipulated you. Like grooming to show you were coerced. She lowered her gaze. Yes, but it was humiliating knowing you'll see me on the stand, describing how I let that creep, how weak her voice broke. I remained stoic, though inside I felt a swirl of anger and revulsion. Felicia's affair still cut deep. I'm sorry. It's painful, but it's necessary for the case. She nodded, tears slipping silently. I know, I just want this behind me. I exhaled. Soon, I said simply, setting the empty glass aside. The silence between us screamed with all the unspoken heartbreak and anger we'd never truly resolved. Perhaps after the trial, we could free ourselves from this loop. Perhaps a small flicker of normal life reappeared when Nora invited Felicia and me for a quiet dinner at her apartment, presumably to get Felicia out of the house. I agreed, though I was half-minded to keep watch. We arrived at Nora's modest but cozy place in Capitol Hill. She'd cooked a homemade soup and had soft jazz playing on a speaker. Nora greeted Felicia with a warm hug. You look tired, honey. Felicia gave a brittle smile. I am, but thanks for having us. I offered a polite nod to Nora. Stepping in, the atmosphere felt gently comforting away from the gloom of our house. We settled in her living room, sipped herbal tea. Nora coaxed Felicia to talk about anything except the trial or the foundation, trying to lighten the mood. They reminisced about old times, silly college memories, weekend getaways, that sort of thing. I listened, arms crossed, half grateful. Felicia was smiling for once. Her laughter was timid, but it was a break from her usual tears. Nora eventually turned to me. Reese, how are you doing? Personally, all this stress can't be easy. I hesitated, then shrugged. It's not, but I keep busy with work and I'm determined to see Damon face justice. That keeps me going, she nodded, compassion in her eyes. I understand. I hope once it's done you can find some peace, whichever direction your life takes next. My gaze flicked to Felicia. She had an odd, wistful expression. I just said, yes, that's the plan. Dinner ended up quieter than expected, but the tension eased a notch. Nora's small kindness was a reminder that the world hadn't entirely turned its back on Felicia or on me. Back home that night, Felicia stood in the front hallway. She pressed a trembling hand to her temple. Nora's place felt so normal. Then I come back here and everything floods back. Damon's threats, the trial, how I ruined everything. She swallowed. Sometimes I wonder if I should just move out, let you live in peace. I studied her face. You could, but you wanted to stay for the security, at least until the trial. After that, we'll finalize the divorce. Maybe that's your chance to start fresh somewhere else. She nodded, tears reflecting in the dim light. Yes, I guess so. Her voice dropped, but it's hard to imagine I'll ever have a normal life again. I had no direct comfort. One day at a time, Felicia. People move on. Eventually might not be the same life, but it's a second chance. She let out a shudder, a breath. I hope you get a second chance to race with someone new or just free of all this. A pang of sadness tugged at me. We'll see. She gave me a trembling half smile, then disappeared into her bedroom. I stood there for a moment, caught between pity and the knowledge I couldn't stay with her. Then I flicked off the hallway light and retreated to my own room, bracing for more restless dreams. Days slipped by, inching us closer to trial. Frederick and I fine-tuned the final evidence. We'd present the hidden camera footage, the coffee shop meltdown phone logs. Felicia wrote a chronological statement of Damon's manipulations. The DA was satisfied with our thoroughness. The sense of a final reckoning loomed large in that last week. Felicia seemed oddly calmer. Perhaps her mind accepted the inevitability. She didn't pace as much, though the nights remained sleepless. She tried job hunting online, but found no promising leads. The philanthropic world had blacklisted her. She considered pivoting to admin roles or event planning for small, local businesses. A glimmer of practicality replaced her despair. Meanwhile, I handled our finances quietly, preparing the legal steps for a divorce filing. I hadn't told Felicia the details yet, but in a few weeks, once Damon's trial ended, I planned to serve her official papers. She must have guessed, but we never spoke of it. Our unspoken agreement first bury Damon, then handle our personal dissolution. As the trial date approached, I could almost taste the tension. Even the air in the house felt charged, like static building before a thunderstorm. Felicia and I avoided deep conversations, both of us saving our emotional stamina for the courtroom. Let Damon throw whatever he had left. We were ready, or so I told myself. The trial commenced on a drizzly Monday morning. Felicia and I arrived early at the courthouse, escorted by Frederick. She wore a conservative black blouse and skirt, hair pinned up. No jewelry except small stud earrings. Her posture was stiff, her face pale. I walked beside her in my usual dark suit, trying to exude an air of calm, though my heart pounded relentlessly in the courthouse lobby. The chaotic bustle of other cases, lawyers, and security checks created a cacophony. We navigated to the designated courtroom. The DA, Amanda Liu, greeted us with a nod, leading us inside rows of wooden benches, a judge's elevated seat, a jury box to the right, and Damon's defense table to the left. My stomach knotted at the sight before the proceedings began. Felicia leaned into me. I feel like I'm going to faint. I put a hand gently on her shoulder. Deep breaths. Once you're on the stand, just tell the truth. You have nothing to hide now. She swallowed, nodding. Frederick gave her a reassuring thumbs up. Then we all sat in the prosecution side. Damon was brought in wearing a dark suit, but with shackles removed. His eyes flicked venom at us. I caught the faint sneer, curling his lip. The judge, an older man with a stern demeanor, arrived in the courtroom. "Rose, all rise for the Honorable Judge Patterson," the bailiff intoned. We stood, my heart hammered. The trial had begun after the jury was sworn in, a panel of 12 men and women with neutral expressions. Amanda Liu gave the prosecution's opening statement. Her voice rang clear across the silent room. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state will prove that the defendant, Damon Henderson, willfully engaged in a calculated scheme of fraud and extortion. He targeted philanthropic organizations, specifically the foundation where Mrs. Felicia Morgan worked to siphon donor funds into private accounts. Furthermore, we will show how he blackmailed Mrs. Morgan with threats of releasing personal, intimate material to coerce her into continued cooperation. We'll present evidence from recordings, text logs, eyewitness testimony, and the defendant's own actions. By the end of this trial, we are confident you'll find Mr. Henderson guilty on all counts." Her words cast a hush. My pulse soared. Then Damon's lawyer, a thin, sharp-faced man named Harold Gaines, delivered his defense opening. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will demonstrate that Mrs. Morgan was, in fact, a willing participant in these financial transactions, that she aided the defendant for her own benefit and later contrived a blackmail story to shift blame. The so-called threats are overblown or misunderstood. My client is a legitimate consultant who was caught in the crossfire of a marital dispute orchestrated by Mr. Morgan out of jealousy and revenge. The evidence, once scrutinized, will reveal a different narrative than the prosecution claims." Felicia flinched at those words, tears brimming, my jaw tensed. Gaines was spinning a false tale, painting her as the schemer. Amanda Liu responded with calm confidence. "We welcome the chance to clarify the true events, Your Honor." The judge nodded, and the case officially launched with the first witnesses. The prosecution began by calling a forensic accountant from the foundation staff, who explained how funds were diverted. Then they called a board member who testified that Damon had no official role, but somehow gained privileged info, likely from Felicia. Both, though, insisted Felicia had come forward once she realized the fraud. Damon's lawyer tried to undermine them by highlighting small inconsistencies in their statements, but they held firm. The day wore on, and I found the legal back and forth exhausting yet crucial. In the afternoon, the prosecution called me Reese Morgan to the stand. My heart pounded as I walked up, took the oath and sat. I saw Damon's dark stare from the defense table. I steadied myself. Amanda Liu guided me with gentle questions. Mr. Morgan, how did you first become aware of the relationship between your wife and the defendant? I explained, discovering suspicious texts on Felicia's phone, seeing them in my own home. The hush in the courtroom pressed heavier with each detail. I recounted how Damon threatened me indirectly, how he used Felicia's donor connections to launder funds, referencing logs and messages we recorded. Amanda carefully led me to mention the coffee shop incident, the meltdown where Damon lunged for Felicia's phone, and the fake investor meeting capturing Damon's incriminating statements. She presented the hidden camera footage as evidence. The jurors watched clips of Damon bragging about insider knowledge and controlling Felicia. Damon's face reddened. I saw a flicker of panic behind his lawyer's stoic expression. Good. Finally, Amanda concluded. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. No further questions. She turned to the judge, then to Damon's lawyer. Defense cross-examination. Gaines rose, a vulture-like grin on his lips. Mr. Morgan, is it true you disliked Mr. Henderson from the moment you suspected an affair? Yes, I said evenly. I dislike that he manipulated my wife. Gaines smirked. So you had a motive to frame him. Correct your jealousy, your anger at your wife's infidelity? I kept my cool. I had motive to expose him if he committed a crime. That's not the same as framing him. He pressed on. But you installed spyware on your wife's phone, orchestrated stings, and recorded him secretly. Yes, all because you wanted to destroy him. Or so you said in certain text messages to your friend Frederick, correct? He read a snippet of a text I sent to Frederick. I want to bury Damon for what he's done. The words used at the time. Out of anger, I clenched the arm of the witness box. Yes, I wanted him legally prosecuted for blackmail and fraud. That's not framing. That's collecting evidence. Gaines tried insinuating. I manipulated Felicia into blaming Damon. He combed through minor details of how we set up the coffee shop meeting. I calmly explained that Felicia cooperated willingly. The judge occasionally told him to stay on relevant lines of questioning. After about 20 minutes, Gaines gave up with a sneer, having failed to rattle me. I stepped down, adrenaline surging. Felicia squeezed my hand briefly as I passed. I nodded at her, returning to my seat with a sense of triumph. Damon's lawyer hadn't shaken the core facts. The next day, the prosecution called Felicia to the stand. I sat in tense silence. She looked fragile as she approached, took the oath and sat, eyes downcast. Amanda Liu gently guided her through the timeline, how Damon approached her, how the affair began, the first instance he demanded donor lists, the gradual forging of documents. She explained how he threatened to release private photos if she refused. Her voice cracked, recounting the intimate nature of the blackmail, tears streaking her cheeks. The jury watched her with a mix of empathy and caution. Felicia admitted her own guilt, how she was naive and complicit at times, but not out of greed. Out of fear and entanglement. She turned toward the jury, voice trembling. I know it was wrong. I betrayed my husband and the foundation. I'm not claiming innocence, but Damon used my mistakes to trap me deeper, threatening to ruin me if I didn't keep cooperating. Amanda nodded encouragingly, letting her speak her truth. The tension in the room was thick. I felt pangs of heartbreak, hearing her confess the details of her intimate relationship with Damon. But I steeled myself. This was necessary. After Amanda concluded, Gaines stood ready for his cross-examination. He circled Felicia like a predator. Mrs. Morgan, you claim you were coerced. Yet isn't it true you first approached Damon with flirtatious overtures? He presented old messages from Felicia's phone. She explained she initially found him attractive and didn't foresee the criminal aspect. He hammered on. You forged these documents. Your signature is there, correct? She hung her head. Yes, I did, because I was terrified. He threatened me, insisted it was legitimate consulting. Then he threatened to leak photos if I refused. Gaines sneered. Photos you willingly sent him, right? Photos you took for your own excitement? Yes. Felicia's cheeks flamed. She stammered. At first, yes, but that doesn't give him the right to blackmail me with them. Gaines tried to twist her words, painting her as an active conspirator who turned on Damon only after I discovered the affair. Felicia's tears deepened, but she stuck to her narrative. She admitted wrongdoing, but insisted Damon's blackmail was real. The judge had to caution Gaines multiple times about badgering the witness. When the cross-examination ended, Felicia stepped down shakily, tears glistening. She looked at me once, shame etched on her face. I gave a slight nod. She had done well enough, I supposed. The prosecution, from my vantage, had hammered home Damon's manipulative role, with the main testimonies in the trial moved through more witnesses, bankers verifying Damon's accounts, forensic IT specialists who confirmed the authenticity of phone logs and recordings. One highlight was the coffee shop's manager testifying how Damon raged at Felicia, lunging for her phone, a vivid eyewitness account of intimidation. Damon, however, had his own line of defense, witnesses a coworker from a previous job who insisted he was always professional, a forensic accountant who tried to muddy the waters about the foundation's finances. But the cross-examination by Amanda tore down their credibility. They came off as either partial or lacking direct knowledge. At times, Damon smirked at me as if he believed he had some hidden card to play. I ignored him, focusing on the jury's reactions. They seemed attentive, occasionally sympathetic to Felicia's tearful story. The tension never let up. Each evening, Felicia and I returned home, drained, barely speaking. We collapsed into separate rooms, too tired to even rehash the day. Midway through the trial, Damon's lawyer tried a new tactic, claiming Felicia and I conspired to fake evidence. He introduced some email evidence that purportedly showed Felicia emailing me about setting up Damon, but the prosecution quickly demonstrated it was a probable forgery, or at least out of context. The judge admonished the defense for presenting unverified claims. Damon shot me a hateful glare, as if angry. We caught on. In quieter moments, Felicia would occasionally whisper to me in the hallway, "He's so desperate. Why not just plead guilty?" I'd shrug his pride, or he thinks he can still manipulate the outcome. She'd exhale. He used to tell me we'd become unstoppable, like some power couple. God, I was an idiot. I'd pat her arm once, gently, then let the silence envelop us. No more needed saying. On the fourth day of the trial, the prosecution introduced final pieces of digital evidence: the hidden camera video from the fake investor meeting at the hotel, plus the transcripts of Damon bragging about controlling Felicia. The jury watched with rapt attention as Damon's voice on screen said things like, "I can push Felicia to do whatever we want. Her husband's clueless." The arrogance in his tone dripped through the speakers. Damon's face reddened in the courtroom, forced to watch his own incriminating words. Amanda Liu paused the video at a key line. "Your ring finger isn't what I'm interested in," Damon had joked in the recording, referencing Felicia's wedding ring. A hush fell. The judge raised an eyebrow. The jury looked unimpressed by Damon's behavior. Gaines, Damon's lawyer, did his best to object, but the judge overruled. The footage was undeniably relevant to show Damon's manipulative approach. Felicia trembled beside me, tears creeping in as she watched her younger self in the footage, flirting timidly while Damon boasted it was humiliating but also a final nail in Damon's coffin, the raw proof that this was no innocent business relationship. The jury needed no further persuasion that he coerced her with sexual and emotional leverage. Finally, the defense attempted to salvage their case by calling Damon to the stand. I felt a jolt of anticipation. Damon would have to answer for everything publicly. Under oath, he approached with a forced air of confidence. Gaines led him through a rehearsed testimony. "Mr. Henderson, did you knowingly steal donor funds?" "Absolutely not," Damon declared, trying to sound outraged. "All financial activities were part of legitimate consulting. Felicia Morgan was the one who suggested forging documents. She said the foundation was fine with it, as it was the norm." I nearly rolled my eyes. The prosecutor frowned, letting him continue. He proceeded to label Felicia a manipulative spouse who despised her husband's overshadowing success. He insisted she roped him into an affair for excitement, then pinned the blame on him. He even claimed the coffee shop meltdown was staged by Felicia and made it look like he was violent. The more he spoke, the more I could sense the jury's skepticism. He portrayed himself as a victim, referencing random, unverified texts. Gaines tried to guide him carefully, but Damon's simmering arrogance bled through. He made digs about me being jealous, Felicia being bored. The jury listened politely, but I saw some jurors exchange glances of disbelief. Then came Amanda Liu's cross-examination. She pounced. "Mr. Henderson, if you never threatened Mrs. Morgan, how do you explain texts from your phone referencing explicit photos and the phrase 'I'll ruin you if you don't comply'?" Damon stuttered. "Those were jokes taken out of context." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "A joke about releasing intimate photos. The same photos Felicia testifies you threatened to leak." He floundered. She knew I was joking. We had a weird sense of humor. Amanda then confronted him with the video footage from the fake investor meeting. "You bragged about insider knowledge and controlling Felicia. Was that also a joke?" Damon tried to claim he was role-playing. The jury looked unconvinced. He grew more agitated, snapping at Amanda's questions. The judge had to tell him to remain calm. With each defensive outburst, Damon revealed his nasty temper. By the end, it was clear his self-portrayal as innocent victim was collapsing when he stepped down, his face burned with rage, eyes flicking from the jury to me. Felicia gulped back tears. Sensing the tension, I allowed myself a mental sigh of relief. Damon's meltdown on the stand sealed his fate. After a week of testimony, the trial entered closing arguments. Amanda Liu delivered a powerful summary, weaving the evidence together: Damon's explicit video confessions, text logs, Felicia's consistent testimony, and the meltdown incidents. She told the jury he manipulated Mrs. Morgan, defrauded the foundation, and engaged in blackmail. The evidence is overwhelming. Gaines tried a last-ditch emotional appeal, claiming Felicia was equally guilty and that Reese Morgan orchestrated a smear campaign. He cited the text snippet about me wanting to bury Damon, but the jury had seen enough direct evidence from Damon's own mouth. Gaines' words rang hollow. At last, the judge instructed the jury to deliberate. Felicia and I stepped outside the courtroom, hearts pounding. Frederick joined us. "Could be hours, could be days," he said. We nodded, the weight of waiting heavy on us. That evening we returned home, braced for a possible extended wait. Felicia paced the living room, hugging herself. What if the jury believes Gaines? Nonsense, I tried, sounding confident. They won't. "Did you see Damon on the stand? He looked like a liar. The evidence is stacked." She nodded, biting her lip, still terrified. I gripped the back of a chair, exhausted. We did all we could. Now it's up to the jury. We parted ways, each lost in worry, anticipating the final verdict that would shape the rest of our lives. Less than 24 hours later, news came. The jury had reached a verdict that was quicker than expected. Anxiety spiked as Felicia and I rushed back to the courthouse. We sat in that same row, hearts hammering. Damon was escorted in, still wearing his suit from jail. He looked rattled, a faint sheen of sweat on his brow. The judge had the clerk read the verdicts. The hush was deafening. Count 1, fraud. Guilty. Count 2, blackmail, extortion. Guilty. Count 3, intimidation of a witness. Guilty. They read additional lesser charges. Also guilty. The final blow struck Damon's face like a hammer. His shoulders slumped, eyes blazing with hatred. Felicia let out a sob of relief, tears streaming. I closed my eyes, exhaling a wave of tension that had lived in me for months. The judge thanked the jury, then set a sentencing date for the following week. Damon was led away in handcuffs, cursing under his breath. Felicia trembled so violently that I had to support her arm to keep her upright. Frederick shook my hand, relief shining in his eyes. "We did it," he whispered. "He's done." I nodded, tears unexpectedly pricking the corners of my own eyes. "Yes, it's finally over. Or nearly." A sentencing hearing remained, but the question wasn't if he was guilty, only how long he'd serve. Felicia turned to me, voice quavering. "Thank you," she managed, tears falling. "I don't know how to repay you for what you did." I forced a small smile. "The verdict is my closure. That's enough." She swallowed, gaze reflecting heartbreak and gratitude. The swirl of cameras and reporters outside confirmed the high-profile nature of the case, but none of it mattered to me. We had our justice. Damon lost the day after the verdict. We woke up to a barrage of news coverage. Local stations ran headlines like CFO found guilty of blackmail, fraud, and high-profile philanthropy scandal. They mentioned Felicia as the foundation manager turned star witness. Some articles portrayed her as a naive victim. Others implied she was partially responsible. Felicia scrolled news sites on her phone, tears of shame brimming again. They paint me as either a fool or a co-conspirator, she whispered. I hate that everyone's reading about my humiliations. I offered a stoic response. It'll fade in time. The 24-hour news cycle moves on. She nodded, setting down the phone. I hope so. I just want to vanish. We lingered in an awkward hush. For me, the coverage didn't sting as deeply. My name wasn't the scandal's focus. If anything, some outlets cast me as the vengeful but righteous husband. I found no satisfaction, though my emotional tank was empty. Later that morning, Felicia got a call from an old friend, Grace, who used to be part of the foundation's social circle. She took the call in the living room, voice trembling. I overheard snippets. Felicia, yes, it's true, I testified. No, I don't blame you if you're upset. I understand. Felicia's face fell, tears forming. I know, Grace, I'm so sorry. Thank you for calling. After she hung up, she sank onto the couch, sobbing softly. Grace basically said half our old circle is gossiping, calling me a disgrace, but she at least wanted to hear my side. She forgave me for lying, but says it'll take time for the others to accept me. I crouched near her, unsure if I should comfort or remain distant. I see she rubbed her eyes. I deserve it, but it still hurts. A surge of conflicting feelings rose in me. I'm sorry you lost your social circle. This was bound to happen. She nodded, voice raw. I know I brought it on myself, but it's lonely. I placed a hand gently on her shoulder, surprising even myself. It'll get better with time. People forget scandals. Quickly, she let out a shaky breath, nodding, tears sliding. Then I withdrew my hand, stepping back, re-establishing the boundary. She gave a sad smile. Thanks. Sentencing day was set for the following week. Damon remained in county jail. Word filtered in that his lawyer tried to request leniency, citing supposed mental health issues. The DA's response was unyielding. They'd push for multiple years behind bars. During that interim, Felicia tiptoed around the house with subdued relief. She no longer worried about random men lurking outside or phone calls from Damon. But the tension lingered like an echo of trauma. She still had nightmares about the trial, about Damon's rage. One afternoon, I found her in the backyard, sitting on a small bench we used to share on sunny days. She gazed at wilted rose bushes. I let everything go, she murmured. When I approached my garden, my job, my life, I leaned against the fence. You can replant, start a new job, a new direction. She clasped her hands. Yes, but with my reputation, who'd hire me? Someone maybe not in philanthropic circles, but you have organizational skills. She gave a hollow chuckle. Thanks, you make it sound so easy. I shrugged. Not easy, but possible if you want it. She stared at the roses. I do, I'm paralyzed by guilt. My betrayal cost me everything, including you. A pang shot through me. Yeah, well, that's the reality. We can't rewrite it. She sighed, tears glinting again. Sometimes I wonder if you'll ever forgive me, or at least not hate me. I paused. I don't hate you, not exactly. I'm just done trusting you as my partner, that's all. She nodded, a tear slipping. I understand. We lapsed into silence, the quiet yard filled with damp sadness in the distance. A neighbor's wind chime tinkled. Life moved on around us, but we were stuck in the wreckage of what used to be. A few days before the sentencing, Felicia timidly approached me about practical matters. Reese, we should talk finances. I have no income now, and I can't live off you forever. I can't accept that. Maybe I should move out once we know Damon's final sentence. I studied her, arms folded. We can formalize our separation soon. Yes, but if you have nowhere to go, I can't just throw you on the street. The money in our joint savings we can split. I'm not out to destroy you financially. Her voice shook. That's more generous than I deserve. But I'm so ashamed. I took a breath. Look, I'm not trying to ruin you. I just can't be married to you anymore. After Damon's sentencing, I'll file the divorce. We can figure out a settlement. You keep enough to rebuild your life. I keep my business shares, something fair. She blinked back, tears, nodding. Thank you. I suppose that's the best outcome. It struck me how calmly we discussed the end of a decade-long marriage, as if it were a business transaction. The emotional bond was severed so thoroughly that neither of us had illusions about reconciling. Finally, the sentencing hearing day arrived. Felicia and I once again donned formal attire, heading to the courthouse with Frederick. The hearing was shorter than the trial, mostly about arguments for sentencing length. The prosecution pointed to Damon's repeated intimidation, blackmail, and lack of remorse. Gaines tried highlighting Damon's charitable intentions and that he had no prior convictions. Damon stood addressing the court with a final statement. He glared at me and Felicia in the front row. I regret trusting her, he sneered. She turned on me to save herself. I'm not the monster they paint me as. The judge listened impassively, then delivered the verdict. Damon Henderson is sentenced to 8 years in state prison with potential for parole after 5, plus substantial restitution fines. Damon's face contorted in rage. He cast one last hateful look at Felicia, spitting. I'll remember this. As bailiffs led him away, a heavy hush followed Felicia. Shoulders sagged. She let out a trembling exhale, tears forming but not quite falling. I felt a swirl of relief, satisfaction, and faint pity. 8 years was significant, likely a life changer, but it was justice for the harm he caused. As we exited the courtroom, Frederick patted my back. He's done. You can breathe now. I nodded, meeting Felicia's tearful gaze. She managed a wan smile. It's over. Yes, I replied, it's finally over. Outside, the media tried to swarm for final statements. We ignored them. Pushing through the Seattle rain had paused, leaving a pale sunlight. Felicia inhaled the fresh air, tears trailing, freed from Damon's shadow. At last that evening, we returned to the house. The atmosphere was strangely quiet, almost anticlimactic. Felicia stood in the living room, gazing at the walls as if seeing them for the first time. He's in prison, she said softly. 8 years, maybe more. I gave a curt nod. Yes, now we can close that chapter, she swallowed. I'm grateful to you, Reese. I know you'll never trust me again, but you gave me a chance to fix what I could. I stared at her, emotions swirling. I did it for both of us, plus the foundation he needed to be stopped. She approached slowly, tears flickering. So, are you filing for divorce now? I exhaled. Yes, I think that's best. Let's do it civilly. I'm not aiming for a messy fight. We can keep lawyers minimal if you're honest about our assets. She nodded, lips trembling. I'll be honest. I owe you that much. I offered a small, tired smile. Good. Let's finalize the details soon. Her tears slipped silently. No more arguments, no pleas for another chance. She just accepted the inevitable. We parted to our separate rooms, each wrapped in the hush of finality. Over the next few days, Felicia quietly began packing small personal items. She had nowhere immediate to go, but wanted to start sorting out what she'd take when she found an apartment. I watched her fill boxes with old clothes, books, the photo albums that once depicted our smiling moments. She looked torn between sorrow and resignation. One afternoon, she approached me with a battered shoebox. Look, she said, opening it to reveal letters we wrote each other years ago. Birthday notes, holiday cards. She let me skim one. It was from our 3rd anniversary, me praising her kindness, describing her as my pillar of support. My chest tightened with an old longing. She blinked. Tears, should I toss them? They might hurt us both. I sighed. I can't tell you what to do if you want to keep them. Keep them? They were real ones. She trembled. Yes, they were, I think. I think I'll store them away. Maybe one day I'll read them with less regret. I gave a faint nod, stepping away. The shards of our past lay scattered around us, but I didn't have the emotional capacity to reminisce further. I retreated to sign more divorce paperwork, ensuring a swift, uncontested path. Meanwhile, the media coverage died down, shifting to other local scandals. The philanthropic scene still gossiped about Felicia, but she was basically a pariah. Nora remained her only loyal friend, occasionally dropping by to offer emotional support. I sometimes overheard them chatting about possible part-time jobs Felicia could do while rebuilding her resume. She might try event coordination for small private gatherings or local restaurants. A humble restart. One day I found them in the kitchen, Felicia showing Nora some online job postings. Nora said quietly, "I know a guy who runs a small wedding planning outfit. Maybe he'd let you help as an assistant. It's not glamorous, but it's a start." Felicia nodded, tears of gratitude. "That would be amazing. Thank you." I offered them a silent wave of acknowledgement, not intruding. It struck me how different Felicia's life had become from a polished foundation director hosting lavish galas to a prospective assistant for a modest wedding planner, but it was forward motion at least. The day I officially filed the divorce papers was a calm spring morning. Felicia was out meeting that wedding planner lead, so I quietly visited a local attorney's office. They prepared the documents I'd previously discussed. The attorney, Miss Kane, was efficient, "So we do an uncontested filing." "Yes, splitting joint savings, no spousal support demands." "Right," I confirmed, "just a clean break." Kane nodded. "Felicia will need to sign. Then, the court processes it, usually a few months for finalization, but it's straightforward if there's no dispute." I exhaled, signing the forms. My chest felt hollow. This was the final step, but also a liberation from the wreckage. Miss Kane patted my shoulder kindly. "I can see it's not easy, but you're doing what's necessary. Good luck." I left, heading home. The sense of finality weighed on me, but also a twinge of relief. I had no illusions left about reviving the marriage. We were done. That knowledge felt like removing a splinter, painful but necessary for healing. When Felicia returned that afternoon, I told her. Her face went pale, lips quivering. "I understand," she whispered. "Where do I sign?" I offered the papers. She sank into a chair, tears rolling down her cheeks as she scrawled her signature. "It's official." Then she choked out, "We had a good decade and I ruined it." A pang speared my heart, but I stayed composed. "We had some good years." "Yes." She pressed the pen down, finishing. Then she broke into sobs, burying her face in her hands. I hovered, uncertain if I should comfort her. In the end, I gave her a moment to grieve, then walked away, giving her space. Reese Morgan in character for a word. At last we reached the aftermath. With Damon sentenced and the divorce process underway, Felicia and I stand at the threshold of separate futures. This final chapter explores the lingering emotional toll, the steps we take to carve out new paths, and the subtle resolution, or lack thereof, that betrayal leaves behind. We might find glimmers of hope, maybe even a sense of peace, but some scars never fully fade. This is how the story concludes. A month after the sentencing, life settled into an odd calm. Damon was shipped off to a state prison. No longer able to menace us, Felicia remained in the house temporarily, but the date of her move out crept closer. She'd found a tiny studio apartment across town, not luxurious, but something she could afford. Once she secured some part-time wedding planner gig, I found myself surprisingly supportive. As I told her before, I wasn't out to destroy her financially, just to end the marriage. One morning, Felicia was packing dishes in a box labeled kitchen, where she wore an old sweater, hair pinned back. I hovered, arms folded. "Need help?" She shook her head gently. "I got it. Just want to take enough so I can function in the new place." "Not everything," I nodded. "I can buy new plates if I need to." "No big deal." She paused, looking up at me with a fragile gaze. "I appreciate how civil you've been, Reese. Most men would have kicked me out last year." A wave of conflicting emotions rose. I won't lie, I was furious. But also, I wanted Damon to face consequences. And you were necessary for that. And now, well, I guess we've both grown numb to the rage. She blinked back, tears setting down a stack of bowls. "Yes, numb is the right word. Are we sure there's no chance of anything?" I sighed, not meeting her eyes. "I can't after what you did." after what I had to do to bring him down. Trust is gone, she sniffled. I figured as much. I'm just sorry. I said nothing, allowing the silence to confirm my stance. Eventually, she resumed packing, tears slipping quietly as she stacked plates with trembling hands. With Felicia's departure imminent, I turned to finalizing the divorce. Last details. The court gave us a date for the final decree in a month's time. Meanwhile, I found myself thinking about the bigger picture. My cybersecurity career was stable, but my personal world had been upended. Abby, my assistant, subtly asked if I'd take a break or go on a short vacation just to reset your mind. Boss, she said kindly. I considered it, telling her maybe after Felicia moved out, I'd plan a getaway. One afternoon, I was alone in the living room, flipping through the divorce documents. The hush was thick. My phone buzzed with a text from Frederick. Frederick heard, "Felicia is moving out soon. How you holding up, man?" Me, surprisingly calm. "Feels overdue." Frederick, "Good. If you ever want a beer, I'm around." I appreciated his concern. Setting the phone aside, I let out a sigh. The house, soon to be just mine, felt two big echoes of a shared life I no longer wanted. Maybe I'd sell it eventually, but for now, one step at a time. Moving day arrived on a brisk Saturday morning. Felicia rented a small van for her boxes. Nora showed up to help. I offered minimal assistance, feeling it was mostly Felicia's day to finalize her exodus. She carefully loaded boxes of clothes, personal keepsakes, kitchen utensils, and some old books. The furniture largely stayed. I told her I was fine with her taking smaller items, but bigger pieces would remain for me. She accepted midway through. Loading. Felicia found me in the hallway. She held an old photograph in hand, one of us from the early years, me in a shirt, her in a sundress, both beaming on a summer road trip. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Should I leave this here or take it?" A pang struck. I studied the photo. "Keep it if you want. I don't mind." She nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll keep it as a reminder of better times so I don't forget that I was once loved." I exhaled, eyes stinging. "You were. I did love you." Her tears brimmed. "I know. I'm sorry I threw it away. Thank you, Reese, for everything." Emotion swelled in my chest. "Safe travels, Felicia." She sniffled, hugging the photo. Then Nora called her name from the van. She gave me a final tearful look, murmured goodbye, and walked away. Footsteps echoing across the floor. I watched from the doorway as they drove off, the small van disappearing around the corner. And just like that, Felicia was gone. The house felt eerily silent. Afterward, I wandered room to room, seeing blank spots where some of her knickknacks had been. A ghostly hush reigned. No sobbing, no tension, just me alone with the lingering memories. Part of me was relieved, another part sorrowful. That evening, Abby called, checking if I was okay. I told her the house was quiet. She gently invited me to a casual dinner with some coworkers, but I declined. "Maybe another time," I said. Right now I needed to embrace the emptiness, to face it head on. I settled in the living room, poured a glass of scotch, and stared at old photos we'd left on the mantel. One was from a company holiday party where Felicia had accompanied me wearing a sparkling dress, her arm around my waist. She looked radiant, proud to be by my side. I realized I wasn't sure how to feel: regret for how it ended, anger for the betrayal, or relief that I was free. Probably all three. Eventually, I set the photo face down, sipped scotch, and let tears come. They were quiet, tears not wailing. A gentle mourning for the life we once had. The scotch burned, but it was a cleansing burn. Tomorrow I'd wake up to a new reality. No Felicia in the next room. No guilt-laden glances across the dinner table, somewhere in a prison cell. Damon likely stewed in bitterness, facing years of confinement. But for me, the darkest chapter was closed. In the subsequent weeks, I adjusted to living alone. The house, though large for one person, gave me space to think. I rearranged furniture, removed items that reminded me too strongly of Felicia's presence. The divorce papers progressed in court. Felicia texted occasionally about final details, some leftover mail, the closure of our joint account. I responded politely, but with emotional distance. She respected that. At work, Abby noticed I was more focused. You seem less tense, boss, I half smiled. That's because the storm's over. The trial ended. Felicia moved out. Life is simpler. She nodded with a supportive grin. I'm glad you deserve some peace. I might have glimpsed a subtle warmth in her eyes, but I let it pass. I wasn't ready to jump into anything romantic. My heart was still scabbed over from Felicia's betrayal, not yet fully healed. One afternoon, Felicia called unexpectedly. Reese, hi. I wanted to let you know I found a small job as an assistant wedding planner. Just part-time. It's not great pay, but it's a start. I felt a twinge of genuine relief for her. That's good news. Congratulations. She sighed. Thanks. I know I don't deserve your praise, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. I don't hold that against you. She was quiet a moment. Then I also got a letter from the foundation saying they won't pursue further civil action against me. They blamed Damon for the bulk of the fraud, so I'm free legally. That's good, I said, meaning it at least one less burden on you. Her voice caught. Yes, I'm grateful. Anyway, I hope you're well. We exchanged a few more polite words, then hung up strangely. It felt almost normal, like speaking to a distant acquaintance. The raw edges of betrayal had dulled, replaced by a cautious civility. She had her path. I had mine. That weekend, Frederick visited me for a small cookout in my backyard. Just the two of us. A couple of steaks on the grill, a cooler of beer. He eyed the neatly trimmed lawn. House feels different, quieter. I flipped a steak. It is. Felicia is gone. Started a new job. Divorce finalization is in a few weeks. Then I'll be officially single. He cracked a beer. How does that sit with you? I paused, letting the smoke swirl. It's bittersweet. I still remember good times with her, but the betrayal overshadowed everything. I'm relieved to be done with that chapter. Frederick nodded. I get it. You handled it well, man. Some folks would have descended into madness or violence. You used your wits and the law. I took a swig of beer, feeling a faint pride. It was the only way to beat a manipulator like Damon. Now he's locked up. Frederick leaned back, gazing at the sky. So what's next for you? Dating again? Travel? I shrugged. Maybe a short vacation, then we'll see. I won't jump into romance. Need to find myself after all this. He lifted his beer in a toast to new beginnings. I clinked bottles with him, allowing a hint of a smile. New beginnings, I echoed softly. The sun dipped, painting the sky with gold and purple hues. A tranquil hush settled over the yard, and for the first time in ages, I felt a surge of cautious optimism. A few days later, the final divorce decree arrived by mail. Felicia texted me. I got the decree. It's official. We're not married anymore. I stared at the message. A complex swirl of feelings 10 years undone by one piece of paper. Yet it was no surprise I typed back. Yes, I received it too. I wish you well, Felicia. No hard feelings going forward, she responded. Thank you. Same to you. And I'm sorry again. I didn't reply further. The chapter closed with that subtle finality. I found a quiet spot in my living room, sipped a glass of water, letting the significance sink in. We started as lovers built, a life fell apart in the worst way. Now we parted as polite strangers. That evening, I considered whether I'd keep living in the same house or maybe sell and relocate. The memories weighed heavily. Perhaps a fresh environment would help me truly move on. But I decided to wait a bit, see if the emptiness receded. Meanwhile, I'd lived day by day, focusing on my career and slow personal healing. In the subsequent weeks, life took on a new normal. I poured energy into my cybersecurity firm, scaling up to bigger clients. Abby proved invaluable, stepping up to handle more responsibilities. We got along well, occasionally grabbing lunch. She never pried about my personal life, but I sensed a subtle warmth. Maybe in time I'd explore that possibility. For now, we remained friendly colleagues. Felicia occasionally texted short updates. Her new job helped pay rent. She was rebuilding her credit. She apologized less, focusing on personal growth. I offered polite encouragement, nothing more. We were truly separate now. One day, Nora emailed me a simple note. Thank you for not throwing Felicia to the wolves. She's trying her best. She still regrets everything, but admires how you handled it. I read that with a small nod, not replying. It was enough to know Felicia was forging ahead. Epilogue. Time marched on. Damon served his sentence, presumably stewing in resentment. The philanthropic world moved forward. The foundation replaced Felicia with a new director, and donors eventually overcame the scandal. My name occasionally popped up in whispered conversations about that cunning husband who trapped the cheating wife's lover, but it died down quickly. I found a sense of equilibrium. My house was quiet, yes, but it was my sanctuary. I no longer dreaded phone calls or stealthy threats. Sometimes I'd stand on the back patio, gazing at the sunset, remembering how Felicia once perched beside me, chatting about an upcoming charity gala. I'd let the memory pass, replaced by the stillness of a new life. Abby teased me about booking that vacation. Maybe I'd do it soon. A week in Hawaii or a road trip across the West. Something to break the routine. For the first time in a long while, I felt the freedom to roam unburdened by fear or heartbreak. As for Felicia, I heard through Nora's occasional messages that she ended up stable in her small wedding planner gig. She no longer had the prestige or the fancy circle, but she found a measure of peace. We rarely spoke. If we did, it was cordial, polite. The pain had mostly scabbed over. The love we once shared was a memory overshadowed by betrayal but not wholly erased. We both learned bitter lessons. In my quiet reflections, I recognized that life never wraps up in a neat bow. Damon's behind bars. Felicia and I parted ways, yet the scars remain. Even so, a strange calm replaced the storm. I am stronger now, more guarded, and in some small corner of me I hold a spark of hope. Hope that someday I might love again, without the sting of deception. But that, dear listener, is a story for another time. For now, this saga ends as all complicated stories do, with wounds healing, consequences served, and a new dawn rising over a life irrevocably changed.